Hello there, it is Monday, the 20th day of January 2013, and there are just 34 days left to the March 4th general election. From wherever you're watching, in Kenya and beyond, welcome to this edition of Monday Special, a magazine news program that not only brings you all the day's top stories, but specifically endeavors to unpack the public opinion and trends in the countdown to the general election. And just like we did last week, tonight we also unveiled the results of two independent opinion polls that were commissioned and funded by Citizen TV. Who is leading, who is narrowing the gap, and which are the likely battlegrounds? Stand by for those results and much more from the pollsters Ipsos Synovate and Infotrack as well. I'm Janet Gogwa. Let's now take a look at the highlights. Ballots 2013 trends. We have the latest numbers by pollsters Infotrack and Ipsos Synovate. Jubilation across the country for top performers as 2012 KCPE results are unveiled.
The constitution that you all passed will be fully implemented without any fear or favor.
If some of you think Raila Odinga cannot be trusted with Weta and Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, don't you see stability?
This country will not be changed by hypocrites. It will be changed by Kenyan patriots.
To Kenyans, this we pledge. Court leaders unveil their ballots 2013 manifesto. And no surprises over nominations disputes as political party bigwigs are cleared to run. Now, of course, we're going to be getting different perspectives on these particular numbers across the board. Julie Gishuru right now is in our election studio. And Julie, no doubt with the numbers this time and this week, your guests are going to have a lot to say about that. Well, I'm not really sure if we're able to get Julie there. We're having a bit of an issue with the sound. We're certainly going to be able to get back to Julie and her guests. That's going to be a very important aspect that we are going to be listening to. Let's now take a look at those numbers that we have been taking a look at last week. What are the numbers saying this time round? Remember, it's Ipsos Synovate and Infotrack as well. Let's see what Ipsos is saying right now. Ipsos Synovate, I'd like to take a look at who would you vote for? That's the question. Who would you vote for? Now, these are the numbers thus far. 45% of those that were, of course, polled by Ipsos Synovate. If we can just go back to the first slide so that we can take a look at what it says for Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka. So we're looking really at the presidential candidate and his running mate. 45% of those in the poll for Ipsos Synovate said 45% would vote for Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka. 41% said Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto. Really a small difference over there. And in fact, in just a few moments, we're going to be getting some perspective and insight into these numbers and what they mean. Musalia Mudavadi, of course, and Jeremiah there, 5%. We can see there Peter Kenneth and Ronnie Osumba at 3%. Remember, this is according to Ipsos Synovate. Martha Karua, of course, and Lotod at 1%. Those who are undecided, the numbers are 2% and 3% for those who refuse to answer this particular question. That's according to Ipsos Synovate. What about Infotrack? Let's take a look at whether or not there's going to be any major differences there between the two numbers so that we can really unpack what Kenyans are feeling at this point. Who would you vote for? According to Infotrack, 47% said Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka. 7% difference there, 40% Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto. 6% for Mudavadi and Jeremiah. 2% for Peter Kenneth and Osumba. And if we can just go to the next slide to take a look at the other presidential candidates, who would you vote for with regards to the presidential candidate and their running mate? Karua and Lotodo at 1%, and those who are undecided at 2%. Well, like we said, we're going to be getting some perspective there. And joining us in studio is Angela Ambitho. She is going to be giving us a little bit of perspective on these numbers and unpacking them for us. Angela, you will forgive my cold. I'm very sorry. Thank you so much for joining us in studio. You know, when it comes to polling, it's usually considered a rather controversial thing. People normally argue about the numbers and say, well, how can that even be? So I want to know from you, does polling really capture the views of the people, the public?
It does, Janet. It's probably the only scientific way of garnering the views of a large populace. There is no other way that has been discovered yet. So if we want to know what Kenyans feel and think about specific issues, opinion polls are your best bet.
Okay. In your view, obviously, you've done this for a long time.
Right.
Is it always likely that we'll see significant changes and differences whenever a new poll is conducted, or does it sometimes remain relatively the same?
It depends on the issue of discussion. I mean, if it's politics, and politics in Kenya, we know a day in the life of a politician in Kenya is a long time. So things tend to change, and we've seen the dynamism. I think the focus right now is on politics, so we will tend to see some dynamic numbers. Whoever understands the voters better, the electorate better, will probably get that swing or shift upwards, and the person who messes up will get a slumping of their numbers.
Okay. Let's take a look at maybe a critic who would say, you're looking at 14 million registered voters according to the IEBC. You've sampled 2,000 people. How does that really reflect the numbers?
I tell you what sampling is. It's just that, as it is, described in the English language, it's taking that which represents the whole. So you don't necessarily have to talk to 14 million voters to understand their views. Indeed, that's why it's a science. Now, I'll probably use the analogy of a cup of tea to help you understand this better, because that's what we were taught in Statistics 101. And really, when you take your cup of tea in the morning, you know that 2 spoons of sugar typically would make your tea sweet. So in the same breath, we know that a certain sample, 1,000, 2,000, etc., will give us an acceptable margin of error, because what you want is an error that's acceptable enough that those numbers are sound. So it's 2 spoons of sugar. What is then critical is, after you've put the spoons of sugar in your tea, is that you stir it properly, isn't it? Because if you don't stir it, you won't taste the sugar.
That's right.
So what that is in the science of sampling is how you ensure that that sampling frame covers the whole country. Look at the US, 150 million to 200 million adult population. None of the pollsters had a sample that was larger than 1,500.
Look at that.
Not 15,000, but 1,500. So it's that stirring of the sample that's critical. So you ensure you cover the people in the north, in the south, in the east, and the west of the country.
All right.
Thereafter, you don't have to drink gulp the whole cup of tea.
You take it in sips.
You just sip it to know that this thing is fine. Okay. And that's really what sampling is.
That's actually a great analogy. It makes perfect sense. I know we're going to be coming back to this discussion throughout.
Right.
But just when it takes, just before we go over to Hussein Mohammed, who's in our other studio, when it looks at the different demographics across the board, I know it's a bit technical, but how is the selection done? If you're looking at perhaps a region like Mombasa, how do you then conduct it?
Right. Now, if we go to a place like Mombasa, we look at what the administrative units are. Right now, the Constitution has given us counties. So let's say we go to, let me start with Coast. When we go to Coast, we look at all the counties that exist there. Now, we can choose to take or cover all the counties, or we can pick 1 or 2 counties. So long as they're different, what you want to look at are the heterogeneities or the differences in Coast Province. Are the people from one part very different from the people in another? Okay. Then you lump the people who are similar together. All right. Thereafter, from the county, you then say, what's the next unit? It's a constituency.
All right. Angela, I know that we're going to unpack this, as I said, a little later on. Thank you so much for what you've told us thus far. But right now, we do need to cross over to Hussein Mohammed. Hussein Mohammed, of course, is standing by in our other studio. He's going to be talking to 2 guests to get more of a political perspective and their reactions based on the polls that we've just read. Hussein, what are your guests saying at the moment?
Well, yes, Janet, we're going to have immediate reactions from 2 members of arguably the main coalitions in this country. For CORD, we have, of course, Sports Minister Babu Namwamba, the former Budalangi MP, and on my right, of course, is for Jubilee Assistant Sports Minister Kabando, and the former Mukurweini Member of Parliament. Talk about democracy. Both are coming from the same ministry, but different camps. Gentlemen, I bet this is going to be anything but the cordial relationship you have in the sports ministry. Or maybe not. We'll wait and see. Let's look at the numbers again. Again, like we saw last time, we don't have a first round winner. Last time, of course, we were with the CORD representative, John Buddy. He told us CORD are not really looking at the first round. Is that the case? Is it the case today?
Yeah, we're looking at winning this game within 90 minutes.
First round?
First round.
Same here. So
round.
Same with us, Jubilee, I believe.
Yeah. We have been very consistent on that.
Very good. Tell me,
yes.
What do you make of the numbers today?
You see, there's not much difference. We cannot ignore what we had last week. Very perplexing, looking at the figures that are given on people's perceptions or their opinion on the nominations.
Right.
And if you look at the percentages, you see 65% are saying they were very satisfied with TNA nominations, and 65% are saying they were happy with the URP nominations, compared with a marginal satisfaction in ODM of negligible 54%. So when you take that consideration, and then you compare with the figures that we get, which are almost similar to figures of last week, you see there is inconsistency. And you know that inconsistency has been displayed by the first statement of my colleague here, Honorable Babu. Yeah. Last week we were told they cannot win first round. Exactly 7 days later.
Honorable Babu, are we really going, the nominations, are they going to affect anything?
I mean, it's normally expected. There's no contest that does not raise temperatures. Every contest raises temperatures, and looking across the board, the feathers were ruffled all across the political board. Jubilee had its own issues in the nominations. CORD had its own issues. But as the Swahili say, yaliyopita si ndwele. Sasa tunaganga yaliyopo na yajayo. And we believe that we have dealt with those issues, right, and we are now moving forward. We are confident of winning this election in the first round.
Do you think the trends reflect what is happening now?
You need to look at the recent period, and you see a trend. You see a very clear trend. And even if you are to compare this to polls, Synovate is giving Raila Odinga a lead of 4 percentage points. Right. Infotrack Harris is giving him 7 percentage point lead. That's a difference of 3 percentage points. That really, scientifically, empirically speaking, falls pretty much within the margin of error of plus and minus. And even those who have watched very keenly the opinion polling process in the US ahead of the last elections, right, you always had somebody doing the arithmetic and giving you some kind of average. And so on average, it does reflect trends, the trends.
I believe you have a different perspective, but let me just go back to Janet. We'll continue the discussion in a short while. Janet.
Right, thank you so much for that, Hussein. Of course, Babu Namwamba and Kabando, both from different political divides, reacting to the polls there. Julie Gishuru as well will be joining her later. Remember, all of the people that we see from various political divides on this program have been selected by their political parties. That's exactly how the selection was done. Elsewhere in Nakuru, we will be talking to Johnston Wakazi and Waweru Mboro. They'll be getting a view from Nakuru, which is a battleground state. So obviously, that's going to be very important. They're going to be talking to people on the ground, what are the key issues in Nakuru, what's their outlook looking ahead after March 4th? What do they want to see different in Nakuru? We're going to be coming to them later on, so stay tuned. A lot going on in this program. Now, let's take a look at another story that was making headlines today. It was a big day for candidates who sat last year's Kenya Certificate of Primary School Education examination, with Education Minister Mutula Kilonzo releasing the results today. The unveiling of the results had been delayed following last year's teacher strike that led to the postponement of the examinations. And as is the case every year, the major highlight of the results was the unveiling of the top performers. And it emerged that in 2012, 3 candidates tied at the top with 430 out of a possible 500 marks. So let's now have a rundown of the top 10 national candidates. Let's take a look at those. Topping the list was Kinoti Joy Kathure, a female candidate from Meru County, who tied with Mwaura Boniface Kiongo and Wachira Njomo, both male candidates from Kiambu County. Now, there was also a tie in 4th place between Muteti Kelvin Mwangangi with 429 marks from Machakos County and Kindiki Dan Mudhomi from Meru County. In 6th place was Shalom Denya Mulinge with 428 marks from Nairobi County. Tied at 7th place with 427 marks were Kanji Banderi Nikun from Meru County, Maina Douglas Kishohi from Laikipia County, and Gitamo Audrey Kemunto from Nairobi County. And of course, tied in 10th place in 426 marks were Muriga Veronica Wairimu and Shehemi Kelvin Witila, both from Nairobi County. Now, these are, of course, just some of the top performers nationally, and our senior reporter, Evelyn Wamboi, sought to put the faces to these and other top performers from across the country and filed the following report.
At the Udhiru Genesis School in Kiambu County, pupils light up in joy upon receiving news that their school is among those that wrote their way to success in last year's KCPE exams. And this right here is the young man who inked it in. 15-year-old Wachira Njomo, a young, rather shy-looking boy who joins in the excitement of those that continue to elevate him. But shy is the least of adjectives that describe Njomo, says his mother and teacher.
I'm happy that they've turned out the way they've turned out. He's always been a top performer, so I expected him to do well.
We thank God for such a gift that He has given us on the year of Jubilee.
For Njomo, who was actually at his grandmother's in Limuru when he received the news, success means a slot at his favorite long-term dream school, Alliance High School, where he hopes to inch closer to his dream.
When I grew up, I would like to become a neurosurgeon.
His success, and consequently that of this small school, tucked between this estate in Udhiru, an example of what this year seems to be the trend countrywide, the sprouting of little-known schools intent on competing with the known giants of examination success.
A school must not be an elephant in size so that it can produce the best of the candidates.
The celebration and excitement continues here in Udhiru Genesis in Kiambu County, just as it continues in other smaller counties that have over the years not enjoyed the face or the name or the status that has been accorded with the results of the KCPE exams.
Kinoti Joy Kathure was the first name mentioned by Education Minister Mutula Kilonzo, the first pupil in the country and the best girl. More than enough reason for family, friends, teachers and fellow schoolmates at Friends Academy in Meru to celebrate. In Laikipia County, it was song and dance at Brickwoods Academy in Nanyuki as teachers and pupils celebrated the success of Maina Douglas Kishohi, the top student in the county and number 7 countrywide with 427 marks.
I'm happy. I'm just happy. I didn't expect such performance, but I'm altogether happy.
In Nyeri, it was Quincy Wanjao of St. Teresa Kanyange Academy in Othaya Town who topped the county charts with a score of 425 marks.
I want to join the Starehe Boys Center and I want to be a surgeon.
In Mombasa, it was 15-year-old James Tinga Mwasaha from Mariakani Primary School in Kilifi County who emerged tops with 423 marks. In Nakuru County, the best boy was Brian Kuria from Little Friends Junior Academy, while the best girl was Juliet Wanjiro Nguge from Leaser Junior Academy, who scored 422 marks. Such Success stories written across all 47 counties, with each story beginning with joy and jubilation and ending with just that, as more faces tell of a victory that came in spite of such challenges as the teacher strike in September last year that saw them miss out on classes for up to 3 weeks. The next hurdle now for the over 800,000 pupils to garner a seat in one of Kenya's secondary schools. Evelyn Wambui, Monday Special.
Thank you so much for that, Evelyn. And of course, congratulations to all the top performers in this year's KCPE results. Let's now take a look at those names once again, and of course, the top performing schools in the country in this year's KCPE results. And staying with the KCPE story, meanwhile, cheating in examinations has reduced from nearly 8,000 cases in 2011 to about 700 cases in 2012. The KNEC or NEC Act 2012 that was in force as candidates sat their exams sought to criminalize cheating and spelled out stiff penalties for cheats. Meanwhile, the government has reiterated that it has banned the move by school heads to force weak candidates to repeat classes after highlighting that most of the students who had scored less than 100 marks in the 2012 results were repeat candidates. Salim Bilu reports.
I repeat, we will not allow repetition of classes by pupils at the choice of the teachers or even parents for that matter.
The Ministry of Education directive stands: no more playing catch-up for KCPE candidates, at least for those in public primary schools.
If you want to be able to repeat, go to private schools.
Education Minister Mutula Kilonzo setting the record straight after the 2012 KCPE results showed that the majority of candidates, representing almost half the number of candidates who scored 100 marks or below, were aged 17 years and above. The highest number of such candidates who were repeat candidates from Kilifi and Kakamega counties.
Making children repeat does not add any value because such children will take the examination when they are too old.
I've heard commentaries that KCPE, children fail in KCPE. And I want to note and inform the country that KCPE is not a pass or fail examination.
Exam cheating may have been at its worst in the class of 2011, with 7,967 candidates involved in the vice, the figure a far cry from the exam irregularities recorded in 2012.
So don't wait for me to show you slippers or T-shirts with questions and so on.
Only 718 of the candidates were involved in exam irregularities owing to the NEC Act 2012 that, among other penalties, stipulates that persons found guilty of leaking examinations will be imprisoned for 10 years or pay a fine of 2 million shillings. Exam malpractices were reported in 37 counties. In Kwale County, for instance, 22 out of the 23 candidates were involved in exam irregularities at Ningawa Primary School while sitting the English paper. All 16 candidates at Chuda Junior Academy cheated during the Kiswahili paper.
Of what the minister has delivered.
It will also be remembered as the exam that saw girls close the gap between them and the boys. In 36 of the 47 counties, gender parity has been achieved. The number of girls sitting the exams is almost double that of boys. Meanwhile, Form 1 selection process is set for February the 4th, 2013.
The selection of candidates to join government secondary schools has been reviewed and will now be done strictly on merit, choice of schools by the candidates, and a proportionate sharing of available places between public and private schools in a district and on the basis of districts candidature.
And therefore, let there be no misunderstanding about what national schools are about. Next year, we'll add another 27 to make them 105.
According to the Ministry of Education, the improved performance as reflected in the 2012 KCPE results is an indicator that despite a ban on tuition last year, pupils were able to make do, and so the ban shall remain in force. Salim Bilu, Monday Special.
Elsewhere in politics, the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy, CORD, today unveiled a 10-point manifesto that promises to deal specifically with challenges of unemployment, economic growth, and equitable distribution of the national cake. Now, the CORD team's presidential candidate, Raila Odinga, said if elected on the 4th of March, will within 100 days embark on radical reforms in the public service and the police force through full implementation of the Constitution. And as Francis Gashuri reports, Odinga and his running mate, Kalonzo Musyoka, took the opportunity to air some barbs at their main challenges in the Jubilee coalition on the issue of reforms and specifically land reforms.
In the coalition's 10-point program dubbed Unleashing Kenya's Potential, the CORD leadership said it would focus primarily on job creation for the millions of Kenyan youth. These the coalition seeks to implement by establishing at least one major industry in each county and a 24-hour economy in major urban centers. CORD also intends to restructure the Youth Empowerment Fund to give young people entrepreneurial skills and provide them with startup grants and loans for business expansion.
Now, we thus need to create 1 million jobs annually.
Food security is also on the CORD manifesto, with a plan to subsidize farm inputs to ensure increased yield. Value addition, irrigation, and investing more in research are core areas in the blueprint.
The CORD government will be what every Kenyan for the last 50 years has been expecting, and the time is now.
Improved national security is also at the heart of the CORD manifesto. If elected on March 4th, the CORD team promises to fast-track police reforms, invest more in training and equipping the police force, and improve border policing by deploying defense personnel.
And that our warriors say that those who have been responsible for the mess cannot be relied upon to reform the police force. CORD plans a systematic cleanup of the force, going back to the morals and values that informed our national life many years ago.
The CORD Alliance said it will defend and fully implement the Constitution and ensure that Kenyans are actively involved in the process. Realization of the benefits of devolution are also captured in the 27-page manifesto.
We want to assure our brothers and sisters in the provincial administration to ignore the propaganda going around that the CORD government will forthwith abolish provincial administration.
But it is the CORD manifesto's chapter on infrastructure and land that could trigger fireworks in the political scene. The CORD team said it will embark on radical land reforms and address historical injustices on the sensitive land issue. It is at this point that focus was shifted to the Jubilee coalition and particularly its presidential candidate Uhuru Kenyatta.
You have a situation where people are hacking each other to death for a quarter of an acre of land somewhere. If somebody owns nearly a province in his own name. If you want to bring change, begin with yourself. Look at these poor Kenyans who are languishing, who are suffering, who, because they have no land to till, give them the piece of land so that then you can see that you can bring change in this country. This country will be changed by Kenyan patriots. This country will not be changed by hypocrites.
People should relax. We are not about to dispossess any Kenyan of land that they rightfully own, but we will have to make sure that land is equitably used.
The CORD team also hopes to tackle head-on the poverty issue and cost of living by increasing savings and investment rates and expanding access to credit. Odinga and his coalition partners also intend to introduce a pension scheme for those aged 65 and above and extend to all major urban centers cash transfers for the poor, orphans and vulnerable children. Quality education will also be a key priority for the CORD government. Other than ensuring that all Kenyan children access free and compulsory basic education, the CORD team said it would equip schools, train and recruit more teachers, and pay them well to improve the student-teacher ratio.
The secondary education shall be free under the CORD government.
The coalition intends to establish a national health insurance scheme to enable all Kenyans access quality health care. Other than training and recruiting more doctors, nurses and other health workers, the coalition also promised to invest in specialized health services such as treatment of cancer. The CORD coalition promised to create one indivisible nation by tackling ethnicity.
If some of you think Raila Odinga cannot be trusted with Weta and Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, don't you see stability? Ladies and gentlemen, can't you see? How much more convincing do you really need to see? Can't you see this is the true face of this country? And if you want to exclude yourself, you can only have yourself to blame.
Odinga will submit his presidential nomination papers to the electoral body IEBC on Wednesday and kick off what the CORD coalition terms a grand march to State House. After launching what it calls a 10-point covenant with the people of Kenya, the CORD team has two main challenges on its hands. One, to move out and convince the 14.3 million registered voters that indeed they deserve a stint at State House after President Mwai Kibaki. Only then will they be tasked with the responsibility of turning the manifesto from paper to real implementation. Francis Gashore, Monday Special.
Of course, earlier on in the program, we'd looked at the presidential candidate and political alliance that you would vote for according to Ipsos Synovate and Infotrack. Right now, let's have a look at the methodologies employed by both pollsters in their respective surveys. Let's start with Infotrack. Their survey, which was commissioned by Citizen TV, was conducted between the 24th and the 26th of January. Now, they interviewed a sample population of 2,225 people distributed according to the IEBC voter registration in the country. The survey itself was done through face-to-face interviews, and of course the margin of error in this survey is plus or minus 2.1 with a 95% degree of confidence. That's a look at what Infotrack had to say. Let's now take a look at Ipsos Synovate. Now, the Ipsos Synovate poll was also commissioned by Citizen TV and was conducted between the 24th and the 27th of January. In that sample, they interviewed a sample population of 2,048 people, and this was done through computer-aided phone. The margin of error, according to Ipsos Synovate, is plus or minus 2.6, also with a 95% degree of confidence. So there you have it. That's a look at the methodology. And of course, Angela Mbitho, the CEO of Infotrack, is still going to join us later on in studio, giving us, again, a little more perspective on the methodology used and how it can make more sense to you and I just to better understand what these predictions are. But before we move any further and go on with that discussion, let's now cross over to Julie Gishuru. Earlier on, she was introducing her panelists to us. She's going to be giving us their reactions and perspective as well. Julie.
Thank you so much for that, Janet. I was saying earlier that we're very excited to have a panel that I think in some ways represents the generational change that we're seeing in leadership across the country. Right next to me, we have aspiring Senator of Elgeyo Marakwet. It's Kipchumba Murkomen on a URP ticket, and he's part of the Jubilee Alliance. Right next to him is perhaps what is being described by his colleagues here as a deputy president in waiting. There's a pretty good spirit in the room today, and it's Ronnie Osumba, of course, here from KNC, which is part of the Eagle Alliance. Right next to him is Hassan Omar, who is well known to the public, having been at the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, but he's now seeking the senator's seat for Mombasa County, and he's running on a Wiper ticket, part of the Cord Alliance. And right next to him, another face that you are very familiar with. It's Dr. Muhisa Kitui, who is seeking the senator's seat in Bungoma County, and he's part of the Amani Alliance. He's obviously on a UDF ticket. So, gentlemen, very quickly, you've had a chance to glance at the research, look at the numbers. There's a lot of controversy around the whole idea of polling in this country, but let me just get very briefly your take before we go back to studio. What are your thoughts on the numbers? And I'll start with you, Dr. Muhisa Kitui.
Number one, I looked at the methodology. It's not sufficiently scientific to my understanding. I've studied research methodology and the sampling structure. It's very, very difficult to segment this society and get representative statistic on opinions, particularly about elections. Second, and importantly, if a projection of a scientific method is so far removed from common sense projections, common sense can't be wrong.
What's common sense to you, very quickly? Just
common sense is that Uhuru cannot have as much support in Western as Musalia. Raila cannot have more than twice as much support in Western as Musalia. So if science disagrees with that, science is wrong.
We'll come back to that later in our discussions. Please, Hassan Omar, your thoughts.
Also, as I said once, when Axelrod was asked, what was the secret to Obama's success in terms of the elections?
And Axelrod being his
key campaign person, he said analysis. What I think Kenyan politicians do love is only statistics that they support their bid to win. Right now, if the same Ipsos Innovate did a statistic and showed that UDF was ahead of everybody else, we'd probably say, yes, this is right. And I think conventional wisdom is that conventional wisdom which we talk about ethnicity and assume that all Luyas will vote for a certain candidate because he's Luya. But what I think is happening is there's an emerging trend across what I call battleground states. Unfortunately, Western Kenya is one of the battlegrounds because I think people do realize that the presidential candidate from those areas is not necessarily a frontrunner. So therefore, it is likely that people might chip out. But I do agree with most of the statistics, and I would urge politicians to start taking them very seriously.
Right, Ronnie, your thoughts?
Julie, thank you. I think, you know, the polling results as we are seeing them are being used to drive a certain narrative with a certain end game in mind. I will agree with Dr. here that the sampling methodology here, I think, comes to question. If you look at some of the demographics that they've taken as part of the sample, it brings, you know, a lot of questions. But going to Senator Omar's concern here around Axelrod and Obama, indeed, yes, analysis was the game of data, but it was data that had integrity and data that was authentic. In the last elections in the US, all polls were saying it was a tight race. At the end of the day, Obama won with a landslide.
Yeah, so it wasn't as tight as
everybody was projecting.
Okay, so you're saying not authentic and lacks integrity. Please, Kipchumba.
Julia, I maintain my position that basically, and I agree with my colleagues, that the opinion polls, as they come from, I mean, as we see in this country, there is, if we go to the details, you realize that, for example, they give us at one point to say that the only people who've changed their minds are 8%. But then the changes that have occurred in terms of the final results are huge, you know, in terms of a candidate moving from maybe 30% to now we are being told it's 47%, yet the people who changed their minds in the last 2 months are only 8% from the data itself. We have also seen this week that there have been introduction of various opinion pollsters. Apart from the two, we have something called, another one called, I don't know, some smart Octobers or something of that sort. And you see their figures are different. So that means, I mean, from all the three companies, you realize that unless, and as I said last time, Kenyans must be warned from believing, I mean, look, for example, how is it possible that Raila has 30% and Uhuru 45%? How is it possible that it's that close in Rift Valley? I don't know. I mean, I agree with Professor Dr. Mukisa Kitui that it is challenging conventional wisdom.
Okay, we're going to come back to that. Thank you, gentlemen, for that. You've heard the thoughts of our panelists here, and I think the methodology and the science behind this is being questioned. The integrity and authenticity of the data is also in question. So it would be great to hear from the pollster what their thoughts are on these issues. And it's interesting to note, Janet, that the one person who agrees with the polls is from the alliance that's leading. I don't know if that's telling. We'll be discussing this more in just a few minutes. Back to you in studio.
All right, thank you for that, Julie. Absolutely. The methodology is definitely coming into question. We'll come back. Angela will be giving us those details. Now, of course, I had said Nakuru is definitely going to be one of the battlegrounds come March 4th. What are people on the ground saying there? Johnston Wakazi is standing by to give us the views on the ground. Johnston.
Well, many thanks indeed, Janet Mbogwa, for that. Of course, people here are talking. We're at the very heart of Nakuru County, I tell you. It's not a battleground. It's a ground that is fertile for the development of Kenya and the rest of Africa. Today, we're talking to sober, brilliant, and of course, focused people of Nakuru County, and they will be asking tough questions, not just simple questions. Of course, we've had the opinion polls out there, the voter trends. But then the question is, what are the people on the ground saying? All right? But then, of course, it's not just that. We'll also be having our panelists here. And Waweru Mburu is set indeed to lead us on that. Waweru.
Thank you, Mokazi. Viewers, we have our panelists here. On my far left, we have Same Nairoshi, who is a Kano Senator aspirant for Nakuru Town. Next to him is Stanley Karanja of KNC, Senator aspirant, Nakuru County. And next to me here is Timothy Mreithi of Na Kenya, vying for Nakuru Town East MP. And on the far end, on my left, seated with the audience, is Mr. Ben Gadogo of UDF, Senator aspirant for Nakuru Town. Back to you, Mokazi.
Many thanks indeed, Waweru Mburu. I tell you, it's not just going to be talking English, it's talking issues. We want to know what people on the ground are saying and their perceptions about the opinion polls. Back to you, Janet.
Johnston, thank you so much for that, and Waweru as well. We really do look forward to hearing what the people of Nakuru have to say, an important region there. And before we hand back over to Hussein Mohammed, just to remind you that you too can send us your views and thoughts on the program, the questions, the analysis as well. 2442 if you want to SMS us. You can tweet us at Citizen TV Kenya. And of course, on Facebook, we're on at Citizen TV rather. That's on Facebook. We're going to show that to you a little later on so that you...
Well, Janet, yeah, we left it off here with Kabando telling us, almost like Mukisa Kitui with Julie Gishu there, that they don't conform to common sense projections. Is that the case still?
Absolutely. Like Dr. Kitui, I'm also a social scientist and with a specialty on research, statistics package for social science. But I can tell you, as I said before, looking at the response of people interviewed after the nominations, I see a lot of inconsistency. I want to refer to, because I've accessed this data, and I've seen that 54%, almost half of the code, the ODM.
Then again, it did not really reflect a lot in terms of changing
yes, absolutely.
The patterns of voting.
Which is an inconsistency, because we know the place that was rocked with a lot of disagreement is largely Nyanza area. And in the same area, we are saying that the reduction of that confidence in ODM, not CORD now, ODM, has only reduced by 3%. When you compare with the other parties, where they are talking about 69% satisfaction, URP 65% satisfaction in a TNA. Even when you look at Wiper, because there was not in some areas in Ukabani, there are not really nominations. Like I can tell you, in Mwigi North, the running mate constituency, Kalonzo's constituency, there was no nomination. A certificate was just issued in somebody's residence in Karen. So I'm saying there's a bit of inconsistency in this. But again, looking at the sample size, because we need to critique this as a continuity. We had week 1 last week, and I was fortunate to be here. I criticize the sample size because I know it matters, given if you're doing the same formula for the same customer, the same description, the same expectations. Now I see a kind of an attempt to redeem that. Because, for instance, in the InfoTrack, I'm seeing now there is listing of counties.
Why? Because you talked about it last time?
I think it's because Jubilee, let me finish, because Jubilee raised this matter last week.
And now that is why they changed
I believe that. And number 2.
That is why we have the pollster in our studios, of course, Angela Mbido, CEO InfoTrack, and we're going to come to her in a short while. Let me just bring in Ababu Namwamba here, and let's go to some specific regions like Western. For the ticket, we have Raila Kalonzo ticket leading with 46%. That is according to Ipsos Synovet. Jubilee, 10%. Amani Coalition, 24%. With InfoTrack, the same area, we have Western Raila Kalonzo, 59%. Jubilee, 3%, paltry there. And 32% for Amani. Ababu, the fallout for Salia Mudavadi and Jubilee, it's really hurting Jubilee, isn't it, in Western?
Yeah, well, first of all, let me tell my very able deputy in the ministry, but very worthy rival in this game, that he's really looking for a pin in a haystack, really attempting to split hairs. And these figures, really, you can see trends, and the trends are so clear. And even listening to my good brother Muhisa Kitui in the other studio, I'm amazed by his projections. What makes Muhisa Kitui, for instance, imagine that Musalia Mudavadi is more of a leader than Wycliffe Oparanya, Ababu Namwamba, Moses Wetangula, Paul Otuoma, all these leaders across Western who are solidly in chord. If you are to use even just a survey of leadership across the whole of Western, from Trans Nzoia, Bungoma, Kakamega, Vihiga, Busia, the clear majority of the leadership of Western region is firmly in chord. And so I see absolutely no inconsistencies. In fact, I do expect Raila Odinga to perform a lot lot better than is projected here in Western Province. Absolutely.
But you see, there's a problem with that. That statement is very erroneous.
And something else. Allow me to say this. Okay. Now, the question of the disaffection with the nominations. Again, I find that argument rather spurious in the sense that this nomination did not touch on the presidential candidates. Remember, the disaffection was not about the presidential candidate being nominated in a manner that left anybody dissatisfied. This was about county representatives, members of parliament, senators, governors, and even take a place like Siaya or Kisumu, for instance, where you had a bit of hiccups. The people there were very clear that whereas they were not happy with the manner that the nomination has gone. Yes, absolutely.
Times have changed. Yeah. Just like, let me finish now. Yeah. Just like you've seen the crumbling, the collapse of the imperial dynasty that is reflected in the Odigaism. We have seen the people speaking.
Are we seeing a collapse?
Yes, the collapse of that dynasty is evident. You can only deny that which is obvious. It's very clear that the people in that particular region of this country are speaking out very powerfully. We are seeing those efforts in Ngem. We are seeing them in a Ngem constituency in Siaya. We are seeing those efforts in Kisumu. We have even seen it here in Nairobi, where a brother to one of the Senate aspirants tried to rig out Sonko by saying that Sonko cannot qualify to contest. We have seen those very desperate efforts. You know, if this opinion polling is scientific and therefore the outcome is empirical, there is something that you can touch. You cannot dismiss offhand the fact that 54% is the number of those who are satisfied, meaning nearly half of their constituencies are not. Number two,
but they're
let me finish. Let me finish on this.
What are they dissatisfied with?
Let me give him time.
Let me finish on this. I think my other colleague is erroneous to assume that the polling is about members of parliament. We know that nearly 75% of every election year, incumbents are voted out. And we too are incumbents.
But Musalia Mudavadi is an incumbent too. What makes Musalia Mudavadi a better incumbent than Ababu Namwamba? Such that when Musalia Mudavadi is in point A, it is assumed that all Luyas will be in point A. And if Ababu Namwamba or Oparanya or Otuoma or Wekesa or Wetangula are in point C, then the people of Western will not be at point C.
You see the difference?
What makes you make that assumption?
You see the difference?
For instance, I know, that in Busia County, where I come from, Musalia Mudavadi will hardly even register on the radar.
Is that reflected by the trends today?
Can you allow me to finish my point?
From Infotrack?
Can I be allowed to finish my point?
Musalia Mudavadi, we have 24%.
Can I be allowed to finish my point?
Yes, the trends, I can see a clear trend.
Can I be allowed to finish my point? You know, they're screaming at cameras and they're trying to shout down people. Is exactly the politics that Jubilee Coalition is in very, very energetic way attempting, and successfully so, to finish. I want to say this. You know, that kind of culture is symbolic of an egg breaking from outside, which means death. Breaking the egg from inside gives life. We are giving a relationship between nominations and the outcome of those nominations and the perceptions that people have received. And when I give a criticism of what these opinions, because I'm dismissing them, I think these numbers are fake. I don't stand for anything.
Fine. Let's dispense with this matter before we talk about anything else. I'm just going to bring Infotrack CEO Angela Mbido. Angela, of course, you're getting here from the Jubilee representative Kabando that you actually changed the sample size because of their complaints last time.
All right, there you have it, Hussein. Thank you for that. Angela and I have just been discussing the fact that it's very difficult for people to stomach numbers. I think that's what we were saying.
Right.
How would you want to respond to what Hussein has just said and to a lot of the other reactions from across the board from Julie's side as well?
I think, Janet, one of the things that we agreed on last week is because it seems so complicated for people to understand that the sample size doesn't really matter. It would be better for us to standardize the sample size. Now, I just mentioned to you earlier on that 15,000, 10,000, 2,000, if you're a good scientist, you'll get the same result. So what the Honorable MP is saying is actually very misleading. Why did we change the sample size? Because we have a stakeholder. That stakeholder is citizen. And when we sat together, we said, rather than have people harping on this very simple area, in our case, or in the case of the scientists, of sample size, because it doesn't really matter, Janet, let's standardize the sample size. Because last time, what was being harped upon was the fact that 2,600 was larger than 2,000. That is misleading. It is false and it's misleading.
Angela, we'll come back to more of your reactions. I want to hear what they have to say in response to you. So Hussein, there we have it. Angela just really unpacking and explaining why there's a particular standard sample size. What do they have to say to that?
I believe the response is only going to come from Kabando.
You see, it's good that she's saying is misleading. Perhaps, you know...
You are misleading, not the numbers.
She's saying that position is misleading that I'm taking. But I'm also saying she's a CEO that other side. I cannot attack the person. But I'm also a graduate with a Master's of Arts in statistics, analysis, from a very distinguished university in this world. And therefore, I understand clearly that you cannot interview 5 people in a population of 10 million, and then you go to another place, you interview 5 people in a population of 100,000 people. That is 0.1 million. You compare with 1 million, but the same size. Sizes do matter. You see the difference of last week and today. You are saying that the difference between Ipsos here is 4%. The difference between Infotrack is 7%. You know what Kenyans need to be told, because they are the voters, is that Infotrack seems to be politically prejudiced, and the fact that they changed, because I harped on that number. Their sample size was 600 lower than Ipsos. And now they have changed to standard sample size. You see, and then I've seen in this report from Infotrack, they have listed counties. There's a list of counties where they have gone. Last week they didn't give a list of counties, meaning
but they still had
my criticism of the counties not being listed and my criticism of the sample size is credible, objective, enduring, and therefore reasonable.
I'm going to give it to, again, just one more time because you don't want to go on and on, to Angela Mbido, Infotrack CEO, to respond to that. Angela.
Angela, there you have it, another opportunity to respond. Obviously, Kabando Akabando staying very firm on his belief that there seems to have been something that was played up. What do you have to say to that?
I think the Honourable MP needs to come out clear. Either he understands the statistics or he wants to mislead the public. One, we are not politically inclined because all the numbers show the same thing. They show the same trend. Secondly, last week, Honourable MP, we were the pollster that stipulated the counties that we went to. So please have your facts straight. Having said that, what is an opinion poll, especially the ones that we're using right now? They're a snapshot of what the views of the people are at that point in time.
That moment, right.
Now, those views may not make people happy. It doesn't mean that those views are not true. And I can see that some of our politicians are not very happy with it. That shouldn't be surprising. I think what is critical is for us to appreciate that we have a science and we're all following this science as best we know how, and any scientist who is truly a good scientist will come and validate that the protocols have been followed. Now, when you start, nitpicking on the 3, 4, 5, then it's going back to saying that 2,000 cannot represent 14 million, which I think was the argument last week. That, again, is very misleading to the public.
Because you already explained exactly how that...
And we have slides that show you from the science itself of sampling that even a sample of 1,000, quite frankly, Janet, can give us very good numbers. Like I say, we had an election in the US. It's good best practice for us to follow. They didn't use sample size of 10,000 to represent 150 million plus people. Now, one may say that or postulate that they're better scientists than ourselves. I think then the Honourable MP is saying that the Americans are better Kenyans than we are.
Right. Angela, unfortunately,
better people than we are, not better Kenyans.
Right. Unfortunately, we have to wind this up. Is there a parting shot that you'd like to leave us with regards to expectations ahead over the next few weeks, ahead of March 4th?
I think the numbers are there to inform. They're not really there to influence. The numbers are being done with one aim in mind. I heard another politician said there's an end game. There is an end game. I totally agree. That end game for the pollsters, and I speak, I think, authoritatively for all three, is to inform the public. Now, the politician who then takes cognizance of the fact that the poll is there to inform the public will do the right things. He will analyze, like somebody said Obama did, and he will look at his strengths, his weaknesses, and use that to win the election. The one who ignores those numbers ignores them at his own peril.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. That's very well said. Angela, we surely will be speaking to you again. Thank you so much for putting it into perspective for us. We're now going to cross over again to Hussein Mohammed.
For more attack and misleading information.
Before we do that, though, I'd like to really reiterate the fact that the politicians who have joined us on this program this evening have been recommended by their political parties and coalitions as well. Hussein, that's Angela saying that those who don't listen, it may perhaps be to their own detriment come March 4th. What's the final word on your end?
Well, I'm trying to bring now Ababu Namoba to the conversation. I don't think, Angela, thank you for that. I don't think you're going to get a lot of attack from Ababu. Like we saw Julie in with Hassan Omar saying the only people who are really somewhat okay with these polls is CORD.
It's not somewhat okay. It's just being realistic. And we cannot stop our rivals from living in denial. If they want to enjoy the bliss of denial, so be it. And what cannot be denied? Since 1824, when the Harrisburg, Pennsylvanian accurately predicted an election victory for Andrew Jackson against, I believe it was John Quincy Adams, since that year, opinion polling has become a science. It has become accepted across the world. And in Kenya, we have made great strides. And I do believe that unless you're saying that there's a conspiracy between the pollsters, that there's a conspiracy between Infotrack and Sinovet, but when you look at these two polls, really the trend is so clear. And really to cast aspersions on these pollsters merely because it does not reflect what you believe or the denial you want everybody else to be part of, it is really unfortunate. And I think it's a bit reckless. Yeah. I do believe that these statistics tell a story. I do believe that, in fact, in my opinion, as CORD, as a coalition, we are using these statistics to strengthen our hand, because as I said at the beginning, it is our objective to win this race in round 1. And so when we look at 47%, we know that we have a balance of about 4 percentage points. And so we will use this definitely to get to our objective.
I don't know if they'll be singing a different tune if they were the ones trailing.
In Jubilee, we cannot use such misleading data to cause. Right. Let me tell you. Last week, I want to just say 3 things on inconsistencies. Last week, CORD was here with me, and they said they cannot win first round. 7 days later, when they had the rocking nominations, and when they had the controversial statements from the Kalebe dealers and from the Musiokans and from the Tangulas, admonishing and antagonizing people, they think they are now riding higher. Now, you see, let me finish. Let me finish.
This cannot pass unchallenged.
I have the right.
Our party leader.
You'll be given the right. You'll be given. It is my time to talk. Even in Parliament, you have your time. And the good thing is that this is not a military boardroom.
You don't misquote. You don't misquote CORD. I'm here. The presidential candidate of CORD has been very consistent.
Can you see the problem with
Jubilee? He is winning this game in 90 minutes.
Fine.
If you have any other statement,
let me just give him time now to talk.
You see, I said no amount of screaming on the cameras or shouting me down will dilute logic. The point I'm making, and give me time. Because I'm facing a lot of panelists. Right. Even that Angela seems to be in the spirit of CORD completely. No, Let me finish. She is even very irritated by my position.
Okay, just give me your point.
Angela is very angry with the Kabando's position for Jubilee. Right. 3 points. You know, we are saying that the reduction of confidence on the nominations has no impact. We know 65% from these same findings are satisfied with TNA nominations, and 69% of URP are satisfied. Public is satisfied with URP nominations. Yet, we are still saying that Uhuru Kenyatta's Jubilee, the Uhuruto ticket, is reducing by 3% in Central Province and reducing by nearly 7% in Coast Province, where we have just spent the last 3 days. And you have seen very enthusiastic, compassionate, passionate attendance, because the voters are the people we see. The voters are the people with the ID card. Finally, you know what? CORD is very happy with these statistics. These statistics that are making CORD very happy are meant to paralyze this country, to paralyze just, if you look at the statement that they have been given, even today, during the launch of their manifesto, antagonizing individuals, alienating.
Fine.
That is alarmist. That is alarmist.
Let's talk about the manifesto.
So now I'm concluding.
That really cannot be a statement.
I'm just concluding. I'm just concluding. Right. Let it be on record that the Jubilee, the Uhuruto ticket, will neither use IPSO or these statistics from Infotrack, no amount of agitation or irritation from Infotrack or from Ababuna Mwamba or from the very inconsistent bad who was here last week. They are speaking from the same secretariat, and yet they are so discordant. They are so noisy.
So what is Jubilee using? Give me your projections.
Our projections are deeply exclusive. I gave some tentative indicators last week.
Give them to me. Just give them to me right now.
You see, if I go province by province, because I don't believe in those provinces, I go county by county. Then we are going to take another.
Okay, give me the national.
For reasons. National minimum. Uhuru, Kenyatta, William, Ruto. 55% minimum First round, 90 minutes. Retiring, Kalonzo and Raila. Period. Simple.
No, first of all, Hussein, actually, I'm just amused. I mean, it's amusing. It's a bit ticklish. Really, some of the arguments that my brother here is making, honestly, are completely off the mark. He keeps on harping on this thing of disaffection with nominations. One, it makes a presumption that the nominations in Jubilee were made in heaven. We saw disaffection in nominations in URP, in TNA, the chaos and the problems in Othaya and other places. So don't give this impression that the Jubilee nominations were made and delivered from heaven. It's not true. And second, and the fundamental point I've made, and I want to reiterate it again, is that the disaffection had nothing to do with the presidential candidate. It had a lot to do with contests at other levels, and that does not affect the confidence in the presidential candidate. And even his attempt to say that the sampling is erroneous, that the sampling did not reflect the population sizes. Look at this sample. Rift Valley, the largest population, had the largest sample of 523. Central, 341. Northeastern, 67 only. Nyanza, 303. So this tells you that even in the spread of the sample, the pollster is taking account of the population sizes in every region. So really to sit here and attempt to argue and become so passionate, really let me just add that we will not prevent our rivals from living in denial. And by the way, CORD is not proceeding on the basis of these statistics. We are proceeding on the basis of a very solid network of support that the coalition has across the length and breadth of the country, from Todonyang to Loitoktok, from Budalangi to Shimoni. But we use this as an indication of that support across the republic.
Yeah. So finally,
how can he win first round? If really you are praising these statistics, then he says that he's not, they are not relying on these statistics. You know, I want to repeat that simple point. These guys are so inconsistent. They know not what this provides. Because by no way can you be validating the statistics and then you say in 90 minutes. It's a serious contradiction.
No, there's no contradiction. It's not a question of validation. If you are at 47 percentage points, you have a considerable 3% of undecided voters. You know that you can actually raid some of the votes that are listed under your rivals and actually increase your percentage. And CORD is saying, today, we are ready to cross the Rubicon. We are ready to take Kenya to the next level. And we do believe that our message will resonate with Kenyans, and we can indeed, and we shall, raise our percentage of the voting population from the current rate of about 47% to over 50%, because we intend definitely to win this race in the first round.
We've run out of time, gentlemen. Give me your final projection.
My final projection is that I certainly do expect us to perform superbly across the board. I have looked at some of the figures, for instance, for the various regions. Take a region like Western. I do expect CORD, which has been given an average of 46% by the Ipsos. I do expect CORD to score over 50%. I would actually confidently give a CORD at least 70% in Western. In a region like Nairobi, I also do expect our vote to be closer to 50% than the 43% that is given here.
47%.
47%, yes. I also do expect CORD to comfortably carry Coast Province, Northeastern Province, perform better in Eastern Province.
Except
and
where?
even in Central Province, where we are projected to hold about 11%, I do expect CORD to raise that to 25%.
Okay, give me your national projection, finally.
National projection, I certainly see as comfortably reaching between 55 and 60%.
Same with you, 55%. First round victory, both of you.
55%. But now, just take the sample of Nairobi. With the recent mishandling of Nairobi, their senatorial position, their governor position,
running out of time,
the position between Waititu and the Kidero is becoming obvious.
It's
day
not
by day.
Waititu.
The position
Waititu is your man.
Between Sonko and that other person, I don't remember the name from court. You know, the projection in Nairobi. In Nairobi alone, I don't go to any other place. Just give you Nairobi.
Very good, okay.
There's Nairobi, Jubilee, Ohuruto, 64 to 65% thorough bashing of code and game shot.
Nationally, both of you say 55%.
Nairobi is a national stadium.
I've given it a stretch of between 55 and 60%. It should be closer to 60%, really.
Nationally, 55%.
So both of you again going for the saying you're going to do win it on the first round.
And statistics don't lie. The statistics don't lie. I certainly do believe that we have several steps ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Those are our panelists here, Ababu Namwamba, Sports Minister, and his assistant, Kabando. I believe next time you meet at work, you'll have a cordial relationship.
Certainly. We have a fantastic working relationship. Yes, certainly.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Hussein. Definitely a heated discussion. No surprises there. Numbers will usually do that, especially for those who perhaps feel as though they're not getting the credibility that they're asking for. Julie, no doubt that people on your side have responded to the discussion that's been going on as well.
Absolutely, and we're going to jump straight in a few minutes. But, gentlemen, your responses to what you've heard. And Dr. Kitui, I think you were challenged there, and Ababu Namwamba said, you know, there are leaders here in Western. It's not just you. And he named himself, Paulo Tuoma, he named several others. Your thoughts on that?
If Namwamba wants to invite me to express my opinion about his capacity to mobilize in Western, he can do that under separate cover. I don't think it's very pleasant for me to do it now. But I wanted to say the fundamental debate is about the science of opinion polling, about the credibility of results, and how you relate what's happening in Kenya with polling as a science. The future belongs to polling as a scientific tool, but a blind imitation of demographic similarities in some areas like US and very, very fractured demographic patterns in a place like Kenya cannot give us a scientific basis to predict what we're doing. How do I mean? Look at the sample by Sinovet in this survey. In Bungoma County, they have sampled from a place called Webuye West and a place called Kapchai, 100% Bukusu. There's a large minority in Bungoma County called the Sabaot. There's absolutely no way you can project the political predisposition of a Sabaot voter on the basis of the opinion of Abukuso from Webuye West. We have to do much more microscience on the basis of our fractured demographies as a science. The second and most important weakness of this work is this. You can pretend that this is scientific, but there's a problem with your science. If two polls at about the same time give such a diverse picture. Two examples. Infotrack is saying that Jubilee has 3% in Western. Sinovet is saying that Jubilee has 13% in Western. And both are laying claim to the same method. There's either something wrong with the method or with the intention.
Right.
You have the same about nationally, about Western with the code. That Sinovet is saying code has 46%. Jubilee is saying it has 59.4%. And they're pretending that Infotrack, they're pretending it's the same method. If the same method gives such diverse results, there's something wrong. But fundamentally, I want to say this. Professor Hoebel, Hitler's propaganda minister during the Second World War, said, a lie told many times starts becoming a truth. Now, Namwamba can fall prey to an attempt that if you repeat a lie many times, it will start to sound incredible.
Let me ask this. Is this helpful for Kenya, Hassan? Let me come to you. Your thoughts on all the polling. And because you say you agree with it, you think it's a pointer to a trend and a pattern, how is it helpful for the country?
I think what happens is constantly we try to measure what kind of political trends are emerging. And as Ababu had pointed out, it helps people make realistic projections or fair projections about what are the kinds of strategies they need to employ in the various diversities or regions of Kenya.
Do you think we can improve the science?
In fact,
even as
what I was hoping to do, if these guys think that these polls are so flawed, why don't they just collect all these views which Kitui is talking about, Kabando was talking about, Kipchumba and everybody, and do your own. So that, because the only polls most of these guys are winning is those that are done by themselves. And I feel very sad, pitiful for Magi and Ambitho, because I do believe they're good Kenyans, trained in their work. And we see, Julie, we go into politics, all of us, with the presumption that we are winning. Even the guy who's going to get 5 votes eventually in the outcome of the election believes he or she is going to win. So I think all of us want to continue to encourage a narrative that makes us competitive in our politics. But I think let's also believe some of the professionalism that we've created in this country. Yes, maybe we love these polls. I remember when Raila was once said that he was going to lose to Uhuru in a runoff. We all went to the drawing tables and said, what's going on? What went wrong? Raila has been leading in almost all the polls, but he's slumped this time around. We tended to agree to the consistency of the polling. So sometimes, in terms of honesty, in terms of your own strategy, you need to inform it in a manner sometimes from independent quarters, rather than just making some bold presumptions that all Kikuyus are going to vote for me, all Swahilis are going to vote for me, Digos hate me, Luyas love me. I think that's hogwash.
But I don't just think it's about tribe or clan. I think it's also about a demographic, and perhaps that's what we should be mining into. For instance, the youth vote, and I guess that brings me quite squarely to you, Ronnie, because Eagle is kind of seen as saying, look, Tuna West Make, appealing to the youth population, perhaps. What are your thoughts on this whole exercise of polling?
Yeah, first and foremost, Julie, I would just like to say I'm surprised actually seeing Honorable Ababu Namwamba very excited and bullish about these opinion polls, because they're the same people when these opinion polls were not working to their favor last election cycle. They said it's not a beauty contest. This time round, because it's working in their favor, they are very bullish about it. But that said and done, I think if you look at demographics, and you've rightfully pointed it out, we need to be looking at what are the new demographics, because a lot of these are the coalitions are actually working out their support based on tribal blocks, and they have partitioned Kenya in tribes and said this is our support base and these are the people who form our support structure. From the Eagle Alliance, we're looking at it differently, and we're saying there is, I think, the swing vote, and there was a dispute here about swing votes and whether Western is a swing vote. I think the swing vote is that young new voter, is the youth vote, and they are looking for something new. Today they might be, because of the way the framing of the question is also posed to them, they might be aligned towards responding in a certain way. But I think these people are not, their votes are not cast in stone. They will still be able to shift between now and March 4th, and those are the people we're selling our message to.
Let's just look at the screen, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen at home. You can see the numbers playing on your screen. And I'll come to you now, Kipchumba, on this. And the U.S. election, a lot of people said the women's vote was very important for Obama's win. But we're not mining into some of this data. We're not looking at what are the issues that affect women in this country. What do they need to hear from the alliances and the presidential candidates? We've talked about young people. The issue of joblessness is huge.
And probably, Julie, before you go to Murkomen, yes, I'll just point out one of the demographics, for example, that they have sampled is they've done, based on employment and employment status. And one of the things that shocks me from their sample profiles is that the unemployed who have been sampled form 17%
it's
of...
a minority.
It's a minority. They say, we all know the unemployment rates in Kenya are above 40% and shuttling towards 50.
Right. So it's coming to you on this, Murkomen, and the fact that, people have issues based, the elderly in this country who are struggling so hard. A lot of them don't have savings, have their own issues. Are we mining enough into this data? But also, do respond to the thoughts that you heard earlier.
First of all, I think I'm generally happy with the general information that is presented here, because we know this data has always not favored us. And if it's talking about Rift Valley, we are just having 45%. It's talking about Central Province, we have 79%. It's talking about Coast Province, we have 19%. I'm very happy because in our internal polls and other polls that we rely on, that we commission, we know that we can do better in Central Province. We can do up to 90%. We can do better. We are doing better in Rift Valley, up to 60-something to 70%. So it doesn't worry me much. My main concern is that as long as, this information is not going to distort, because they're telling us that the people who are undecided are only 2%. So if the information, and I really feel, just like Dr. Mukisa Kitui was talking about Namwamba, I feel like as long as he's going to rely on that information, then he will be living a lie. and therefore it's good for us because they're going to sleep. We are closer
So you're almost being sarcastic. You're saying if you want to believe it, believe it.
Believe it, yeah, well,
our numbers are different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I wanted to respond to the women issue.
Yes, that's very important. What about all these other groups who have needs, who have interests, who are literally being ignored to look at a regional, a tribal, or a clan divide?
The problem is the reality. We are moving actually to the question of reality, Julie.
I'll ask you to be very quick so each person
Exactly.
can respond.
So I'm saying that as a country, we are still voting based on tribal blocks, and therefore we haven't had a chance to sit down and segregate the issues to youth, to the elderly, to the women, and we are all hoping that as we move towards the next elections, that will be the indicators that are going
Right,
to
Dr. Kitui, an important thing for us to do?
An ascribed category of persons, like women, like unemployed, like youth, becomes a category politically if it is conscious of itself as a category. We are seeing substantial growth of the youth as a category, subjectively conscious of itself as a group, with identified subjective and objective interests. But we're still very far from Kenyan women folk seeing themselves as a group unto themselves. Many times you find the opinion of the husband makes a woman prefer a candidate to vote for much more than their own consciousness as a woman and what does that candidate represent for the interest of a woman. Until and unless they become subjectively conscious of themselves as a group, there will be an interesting statistic but irrelevant in terms of voting behavior.
Right. Ronnie, you wanted to...
Yes, and you know, I like what Dr. has just said, that these formations have to be conscious formations for them to be able to have a stake and a say. Unfortunately today is because people like Senator Murkomen here want to balkanize them into tribal blocks.
Why are you picking on me?
Because you've said that we are not yet there, and it will take another 5 years. I want to tell you and tell Kenyans that I think a good number of young people, for example, and even women to some extent, have started forming themselves in formations that they can then be able to negotiate with. But for as long as we keep giving them this perception that you must belong to a certain tribal formation for you to be relevant in the political conversation, then they will keep running back to their tribal cocoons. And we need to start encouraging this
Hassan, let me come to you on this. And our political parties for many years, and players on the political scene, have fed us the poison of tribal voting, have allowed us and actually encouraged these tribal blocks. Is it not then the responsibility of the political players as well, and the parties and the alliances, to start to shift this and to take it to these different groups and start to make them realize they exist, or are we going to live in this kind of vacuum?
But if you look at the organization of the entire code strategy or campaign platform, it is based on targeting some of these very core constituencies. We believe that as much as the consciousness might not be optimum at the level that we want, there is a way in which there are issues that affect women. And ODM has tried to allow women representation, and the code collegiate allow women representation in the broader, makeup. The same happens in terms of the youth. And if you look at some of us, the whole initiation into what we are doing is basically a guided strategy. We are not there by coincidence. We are there by strategy. And our TORs are very clear. Galvanize the youth. Take them away from this ethnic mindset. And that's why some of these guys cannot explain where the numbers come from. Not you, Musumba. That's why they believe that because there's an ethnic makeup of the country, Raila cannot get this kind of percentage point and Kalonzo in these areas. But I think there are these demographics that people have tried to target by trying to address issues that are core and fundamental to them.
Okay, we're going to come back to this in just a short while. So Janet, for now it's back to you in studio. And I think definitely the feeling is that there are groups that could be, important to focus on and address. Can these groups shift this election if the youth realize they have the numbers? Could they shift the election? We'll come back to discuss some of these issues in just a short while.
Okay, Julie, we'll come back to you for that. Could they shift the election? That's the question on a lot of people's minds, possibly even those in Nakuru. Johnston Wakazi standing by there. Let's hear what people on the ground there have to say and how reacting to the polls.
Absolutely. Right, indeed. Thank you so much, Janet Mbugua. Of course, we're here at the very heart of Nakuru. And we also have here a group of Nakuru residents, and we're talking about sober and focused people. They have hard questions. We're looking at the opinion polls, it's like the graffiti is already on the wall, but hey, these are basically trends. Last week we had something, this week we're having something else, and who knows, towards the elections things will change. But people are asking, hey, what is the perspective on the ground? But before we move on to get the comments of the people around here, perhaps just to show how enthusiastic we are, just a round of applause. Right, a great deal, many thanks indeed, a great deal of enthusiasm here happening. But before we move on to their comments, let's catch up with Waweru Mburu, who will be talking to a panel of candidates. Waweru Mburu.
Thank you, Mukazi. As I said earlier, we have aspirants here in the among us, and something that has come from the panelists in the studio, that the numbers that attend your political rally count when it comes to the voting. Is it true, Nairoshi?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for this time to. I want to thank you for this time to be able to tell the people around the country what is happening exactly, especially here in Nakuru. I do agree that pollsters have their duty to do. They are trying to bring around a point to Kenyans. But my worry is that we can talk so much about a poll that is completely empty on issues. I would like to have seen a poll that would be talking about issues like who stands to give the youth of this country more jobs, who is better placed to provide health care for families, who is better placed to increase infrastructure for the country. So for us here in Nakuru, we are asking, it is not just a question of who is going to be your president. The question is, who is going to be the president that we people in Nakuru are going to depend on to bring development to the people? Those are the critical questions that we are asking down here on the ground.
A quick one, Bwana Hiroshi. Your coalition, the Amani coalition, with 5%, according to the pollsters, are you doing that badly?
Actually, that is the biggest flaw in the whole polling data and science. Because the thing is, if you look at critically at the methodology, one of the things that is coming out very clearly on these polls is that the CORD coalition has lost ground. The Jubilee has lost ground. Question is, who is gaining ground? I want to tell you that Nakuru is the county to watch, and Amani coalition is the coalition to watch. The ground is shifting, and the tide is turning, and this is the time. Give us another 4 weeks, and things will change.
Bwana Stanley Karanja, the eagle is not flying, according to these polls. True or false?
According to the polls, Waweru Mburu, first of all, I must appreciate all the participants and all the viewers within this program. I have few comments, and I will look at this issue differently. First, the pollster. And this, with much respect back to Angela, the one who was doing it, I would wish to recommend an improvement of the methodology and how you arrive at the numbers. Use, where possible, but it's your business, Yamane's 1979, whereby if you calculate with a finite population, you're going to get 16,000 people that need to be used as the sample size. That's the first thing. That's an improvement. We need to be helping our other researchers where they are, because I'm a consultant, a marketer, and a researcher. Notwithstanding that, let's go to the next point. How you derive the numbers in this political marketing and game. When you see these very big crowds, how they come to reach some other coalitions have very big people, have so many people, is because there is a stipend given for you to attend these rallies. So it is a game of money again. You have more money, you have big crowds. You have big crowds, you show the entire country that you are the one who is winning. Human beings would always wish to be connected with the success. Again, we are talking about pollster, and I'm taking it in another dimension. Okay, let's go to what you're talking about, the ego. The ego is a bird, which only is synonymous to change for a better life. When it reaches 40, it undergoes a very painful moment for it to for transition. And that's what this country needs to go. Let's go to the numbers. I've seen 2% for the best presidential candidate in future. What is future? Future is any time beyond now. And the future is immediately a second after now. The pollsters are showing the best candidate at 32% is the Honorable Peter Kenneth. That's the future. We need to define it appropriately. Kenyans are saying for their future, they need and they will believe in Honorable Peter Kenneth. Okay, I want to put things into perspective. Come to Politico, the pollster, it is saying he's 2%. Well, through the political marketing and the games that have been played, the people, when they see the big numbers, everybody when he's asked, he says, yes, I'll vote for this one because definitely they will win. In my experience on the ground, because I'm meeting very many people, people are saying the right president is Honorable Peter Kenneth, but he's not going to win. So what do Kenyans want? Do they want a bad president who will win? That's the question to back to Kenyans.
Away from coalitions, Mr. Timothy Mureithi, you people have said, we don't want coalitions, we want to go it alone as na Kenya. And according to this poll by Ipsos Synovate, you are appearing nowhere. What is happening?
Thank you very much. One thing really you have to kind of capture very seriously here is that this country has actually started being driven in the manner in which we did not expect. Why am I saying this? When you hear people talking about popularity of political parties and then talk about who is who and who is where, it is not about the issues as my friend is saying here. It is a question of which tribe is ahead of which tribe. And therefore, indeed, this country is being taken in the wrong direction. Taken in the wrong direction because the people you see sitting here today in a cosmopolitan county like Nakuru do not want to know what tribes are all about.
When the Code Alliance is looking at the numbers at Tononoka, when the Jubilee Alliance is looking at the numbers in Uhuru Park, when the others are looking at all those numbers that attend their rallies, you people, what strategy are you applying to make sure that you are reaching the people down there?
Let me say this. You know, basically these are alliances. What they do when they want to talk to their people, they transport them from all the sectors of the constituencies and the counties. For instance, if there's a meeting in a Afra Stadium, you find that these guys pay people to come all the way from Orenguroni, Subukia, Naivasha, and all the other places within the county. But the strategy of my party is to get down to the grassroots and talk to the people from their positions and where they're doing their normal business.
Thank you, Mr. Mureithi. I think I'll cut you short as we go to Mwakazi.
Yes. Thank you.
And we get feedback from our audience. Please.
Right. Thank you so much indeed, Waweru Mburu. And of course, the experts out there. What is your perspective when you look at the figures?
Thank you so much.
Name what you do.
My name is Maseze Kemunche. I work with a civil society organization called Center for Enhancing Democracy and Good Governance. My view is that you like them, you hate them. Opinions shape, politics in this country. One thing that is lacking from the analysts and even from the panelists here, they don't seem to be clear on what an opinion is. This is not something static. That's why we see when they came out in the first instance, they were different from what they are right now. Moving forward, there is a reflection of truth in the opinions, whether coming from Synovate or from the other, pollster. In my view, the purity, opinion polling being a science, the purity of opinion polls must be observed. And the extent to which the methodology that has been used by the pollsters has observed that purity is what perhaps could determine whether or not they are credible. But on the ground here, those of us who are listening to the news, watching the TVs and reading the newspapers, and see the figures changing. Ultimately, our views are being influenced. So we cannot perhaps really say they mean nothing. They mean a lot, and if you are performing poorly, it's about time you ask yourself, what is it that you can do so that you can increase your numbers?
Amazing.
Because I know some of us.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much. So love it, hate it, opinion polls are here to stay. What is your perspective?
Thank you, Mr. Makazi. My name is Giorgio Mondi. I'm with African Institute of Research and Development Studies. From my own understanding capacity and the capacity of understanding from the people of Nakuru and Kenya at large, it is a fact that the way we are in Kenya is just equivalent to whatever opinion poll is actually saying to Kenyans. God is ahead, whether you like it or not, it is going to win. But my request is, we people of Nakuru, you remember the other time when we did our last election, we really got problems, people being murdered and those kinds of things, just because of that fact. The opinion was showing the way it was, and the outcome was almost the same until somebody somewhere came and interfered with the whole system. But this time, my request is, please, if it comes the way the opinion is saying, and I think it is going to be the same, let us not bring whatever was brought the other time so that some of us Kenyans ran away again the way they ran. Some got killed. Because if you can remember, at this moment, when the schools were being opened, if you can walk around these public primary schools, there's a lot of fear. There are quite a number of pupils who were supposed to come back to their various schools. They have not come back. And this has happened because of that fear. And I'm requesting that because the election is going to be done during the time students...
Omondi, I think the message that Omondi is putting across is very clear. We have seen Honorable Ababu Namwamba and his assistant minister, Kabando Akabando. They are able to argue, to have a political discourse and still remain friends. And I think what you are saying is, even for us here in Nakuru, we can't belong to CORD and belong to Jubilee and belong to Amani, but we can still live in peace. That is true. I think the message is...
Thank you so much. And of course, also to realize that these are trends. Of course, things are bound to change. Next week, perhaps, who knows, things will change, all right? Thank you so much, sir, for that. Let's move on to another comment.
Yes, kwa majina naitwa Mwangi Moraya. Mimi ni mratibu ama coordinator wa Midrift Human Rights Network. Na niliweza kujitosa katika hiki kinyang'anyiro. Nilikuwa napigania kiti cha ward representative. Na kila uchao katika eneo ambalo linaitwa Kihingo Njoro constituency hapa Nakuru County. Na kila uchao nilipokuwa naamka nafanya kampeni yangu, nilikuwa napata Mwangi Moraya 1%. Alafu napanda 3%. Nilikuwa mwisho kila wakati. Lakini baada hizi kura kufanywa, sikuwa katika hiyo nafasi. Na nauliza, hizi kampuni ambazo zinafanya hizi kura za maoni, zinazingatia maswala ambayo yanahusiana na wananchi ya moja kwa moja? Kwa sababu tukizingatia haya maoni kwa mfumo wa nchi za kimagharibi, kwa mfano, angalia Amerika, kila mtu yaongea Kiingereza. Kitu cha pili, wale watu maswala yao ndio kama kwa bwana Obama alikuwa anasema maswala kuhusu afya. Huyo mwingine naye alikuwa anasema swala ile lingine. Kwa mfano hapa Rift Valley hapa, uongozi mbaya ndio umekuwa ukileta hizi shida. Nyanza Budalangi wanabebwa na maji. Pale Turkana wamepata mafuta. Hizi kampuni ambazo zinafanya utafiti zinazingatia maswala haya ambao kila kaunti yanahitaji, ama ni mtu ambaye tunampigia kura?
Na kwa maoni yako, yale ambayo yamesemekana kwamba maoni haya yamechukuliwa kutoka kwa wananchi, unafikiria yanaambatana na mawazo ambayo yako mashinani?
Labda tu ndio ushauri kwa hizi kampuni ya kwamba hii ni Afrika. Sayansi ndio tuikubalia. Ukimwona chungu akinatembea ujue mvua inakaribia. Ukimwona chura anaanza kulia mvua inakaribia. Kwa hivyo haya maoni lazima yazingatiwe katika mantiki ya Kiafrika. kila watu ana mahitaji yao na tuyazingatie kwa mambo kama, lakini si ati ni TNA sijui ODM sijui iko na mambo kama hayo. Watu wana mahitaji yao na ndio ataamua vile atakavyopiga kura. Asante sana.
Asante sana. A round of applause, please. Well, there you have it. Comments from the candidates there, and of course even the people on the ground. One thing is really clear. Yes, these are trends, things are bound to change, but at the same time, we're looking at a county that is strong and saying, you know what, come the elections, we'll still stand as one people, one country. The country is more important than any one leader or any election. At the end of it all, we will go through the elections, but we have to stand as one. And a challenge as well to the polling, the pollsters. Hey, people are concerned here. There are certain things that perhaps you need to bring in terms of even the questions that you ask in relation to the methodology. So these are some of the issues that are playing around here in Nakuru County. Back to you, Janet.
Thank you so much for that, Johnson. And absolutely, just listening to what the people there saying, that they don't really want to see what happened in 2007. None of us obviously does. So just interesting to get the perspective of people in Nakuru giving their views on the issues that are important to them, how they want them addressed. One gentleman also saying opinion polls shape politics in Kenya. So very divergent views there. We'll be hearing more from them a little later on. For now, though, Hussein Mohammed also has more of your views on social media. Hussein, what do you have?
Yes, Janet, I'll start with the SMS line 2442. Mangata from Eldred says, polls are nothing compared to Wananchi. We don't believe them. This race one cannot predict. Those men in studio are defending their parties. Very interesting. That is from Mangata from Eldred. Again, now we go to Facebook. Kubasu Andrew says, this polls tells me something. Coalitions can only believe in them when they favor their survival and interest. Again, very, very interesting there. Let's sample another one. Obura Eno says they are all about popularity but not who will become the president after 4th March. Even Goliath was popular, but little known David defeated him. Let's now look at what we may have on Twitter now at Citizen TV Kenya. Godwin Murunga, if poll results are so wrong in Kenya, how come they were relatively accurate in 2007? That is Godwin Murunga. Let's have another one here. At Kwamboka. Kwamboka says, truly, if a science is unable to read common sense, then that science is wrong. Cheers, Bukisa Kitui, who is, of course, with Julie Gishuru. And finally, Oliver Kirui. Next time polls are done, representatives of parties be involved in sampling. Well, very, very interesting comments there we're getting from you. Well, thank you very much. And, of course, keep sending your feedback to Facebook, of course, Citizen TV News, and at Citizen TV Kenya, that is Twitter, and 2442. Janet, very important what Mwakazi and Waweru are saying in Nakuru.
Absolutely, about the fact that political discourse can happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it has to lead to combat.
Exactly.
It should be a discussion.
Exactly. In fact, it's very interesting because they had a minister and an assistant minister.
Exactly.
They shook their hands when they left the studio. We'll try and show you that next time. And remember, of course, they going tomorrow again to work in the same ministry.
And that would be absolutely amazing. And next week, of course, we'll have more of that. But for now, we now hand over to Julie Gishuru. She has more on the program. Julie.
Thank you so much for an excellent job and such comprehensive coverage, Janet and Hussein. And certainly, gentlemen, the dialogue in Nakuru, absolutely fantastic. Different points of view, but a reminder that, look, no matter what, above all, we're one nation and we're not moving backwards to the situation we saw in 2007. So whatever we think, whoever we support, we're all together. Gentlemen, let's get into our discussion now on the issue of what factors could swing this election. As we're all looking at the patterns of yore and we're looking at the numbers given to us by the research companies, what might we be missing that we should be keeping an eye on? And this time, Ronnie, I'll start with you.
Thanks, Julie. I think a couple of things have been ignored. The issues that are affecting Kenyans and how real these issues are to them. High unemployment rates, and unemployment is the biggest concern. I would like to see the pollsters do a poll on issues, and let's see what the issues that are affecting Kenyans are. Unemployment rate is going crazy, and young people are continuously getting desperate and continuously getting frustrated. Poverty levels are extremely high, and that is the second highest issue according to our polls.
According to your in-house research at Legal Alliance.
And corruption. Again, we have not seen a strong hand in dealing in corruption. This is beginning to affect, well, has continuously affected government services to people. Now, it depends. Some of the things that could shift this conversation, therefore, are how desperate are Kenyans to change their situation and to fix some of these issues. Between now and then, we will see a lot of debates. The presidential debate is coming up. I think that is going to be a critical turning point, again, in this election. It will depend on how authentic these candidates will be in defending their positions, in making propositions to Kenyans, and in trying to connect with Kenyans.
Let me come to you, more comment on this. And you know, Moi was a fascinating leader. They call him the professor of politics. And he created, however, a scenario that has us locked into this pattern in Kenya of regional blocks and of division. And yet, so many people have common interests, common needs. What are the issues, do you think, that could swing this election?
I agree entirely. I think the issues are the same, especially unemployment and addressing youth issues is going to be a very key issue in the campaign. I think all the issues are the same. The difference between those who will succeed and those who will not get the votes of Kenyans is believability. So it's ability for every political party to be able to sell programs that are going to be believed by the people, programs that are hands-on, programs that are also believable based on the history of a particular candidate. For example, we have the advantage, if we were to, our deputy president was to go out there and talk about agriculture, his record in agriculture would resonate with what people feel down there.
And food security is another critical issue for this country.
If you come to question, for example, economic stimulus plans, our presidential candidate has already done that. So it is the question of being believed. I think the difference, if you read all our manifestos, they are most likely going to have the same issues. It is about how you are going to do it, but also believability as to whether there is a track record that can show that you will be able to deliver those issues.
Hassan, let me come to you on this. Of course, the manifesto has been launched today.
Absolutely.
And the youth vote, because largely a lot of young people are unemployed and living in poverty, could be an important factor. What are you promising the country, and what do you think are the key issues?
First and foremost, we are looking at the state holistically. Many of them, I think, must acknowledge that there is a fundamental shift with respect to the new constitution from this utopian capitalism, a draconian state where it fleeces the poor and it rewards a few, to a more social democratic state. And this is anchored largely in the Bill of Rights, which creates Article 43, which is about economic, social, cultural rights. And that's why within our manifesto, as the code, we have anchored social justice as the fundamental in terms of driving forward the country's renaissance. You look at issues like jobs, where we intend to create jobs that at least we drop the employment levels drastically. There are issues around food security that you talked about, then national security, poverty and the costs of living, social equity, healthcare, education, things that are fundamental. And I think what the Code Manifesto tries to do is to anchor the social justice agenda as a new paradigm of state. So that, and as Malcolm puts it, it is about the believability. It's up to you. Look at the candidates across the board. These are some of them are the most renowned, issues around land. Shows some of them as some of the most renowned capitalists with a utopian appetite in terms of cutthroat. So we need people who are more humane in terms of delivery, and that's why for COD, devolution is extremely fundamental. Because if you look at the fourth schedule, part 2, a lot of the social justice issues around healthcare, education, polytechnics, things that give life to people, are functions of the county governments. And therefore, if you look at us, we have looked at the whole of these issues around state as shifting fundamentally the paradigm of state from what we state as we know it to the state as what we want it to be.
Let me come to Dr. Kitui. No, I'll come to Dr. Kitui first. Yes. UDF's position, but also can Kenyans start to focus on issues?
Wait, before you go to that. He has said a lot of things, but he has said very little.
How many jobs, Dr. Kitui wants to know?
Two fundamentals.
Yes.
The Constitution of Kenya does not create a social democratic society. Number 2, devolution weakens the ability of the own instrument for social justice which is a strong central government that takes from the rich and gives to the weaker. Devolution is going to create more inter-regional and internal to a region differentiation. So don't put good rhetoric onto something that is not quite correct. Devolution is good, but not for the reasons of social justice. Now, having said that, I've had a casual look at the Code Manifesto. The arithmetic doesn't add up. Where are you?
Give us the specifics.
I'll give you just a quick example. You cannot promise us 10% of GDP to infrastructure, at least 15% of GDP to developed government, comprehensive health insurance to everybody. That's voodoo economics. It doesn't
Voodoo
work.
economics,
Now,
say.
having said that, I go to the original question. Are policy platforms going to influence to be the game changer between now and the 4th of March? No.
You don't believe Kenyans
The
are going
diplomatic community and the media and part of the intelligentsia will write articles in the Sunday newspapers about these manifestos, and then they remain politically sterile. The deciding factors in the voter preferences in Kenya, at least over the past 20 years, is the sense of, do I associate, do we have the comfort level with that candidate vis-a-vis the other? Where are my people trooping? That trooping effect, the triggers have nothing to do with whether they promise comprehensive insurance or across the board pension to 65-year-olds in this country.
How long?
Having said that,
you will respond. How long, Dr. Kitui, before Kenya changes its voting?
I don't know how long it takes, but over the past 20 years, I've been involved intimately with the process of preparing manifestos. They're very nice at the launch. They look very good. Sometimes they get very nice coverage in the newspapers, but they're very limited carryover in terms of influencing the broad section of Kenyan electorate preferences.
Each of you will come in. Each of you will come in. Each of you will come in. But I want you to also address, honestly, for the Kenyan public, you know, is it just a lot of good PR, voodoo economics contained inside it? Or are these things that you are passionate about delivering for Kenyans? I'm going to come to each of you for your responses, and please, as tight as possible before we go to the next issue. Kipchumba, I'm coming, Hassan. Don't worry.
Really, yeah, that is very, you know, when Hassan was talking about social justice and whatever, one of the things that their presidential candidate said was about land. And he went ahead and said, you know, a person owning size of Nyanza vis-a-vis those who are owning a quarter of acres. And Omar Hassan is repeating the same issue. Remember, land is an emotive issue. Jesus told, you know, one of the rich young men that if you want to follow me, you must sell your property and follow me. I think I want Kalonzo and Raila, the president and the deputy president of CORD, to live by example. When they tell people they were going to distribute land, I saw large landowners, people who own large tracts of land, stand up and clap. I like them to lead by example, starting with the president and deputy president to sell their lands in Karen and go and live with the poor.
So you're saying if you're going to make a statement,
exactly,
live by it.
I want the chairman of ODM to sell his large tracts of land and come and live with these people who are poor, so that then we can actually tell people that we are going to distribute land and give.
Thank you, Kipchumba. Point taken. Ronnie, please.
Julie, I like the fact that these two gentlemen, the senators, have actually said that it is going to be about believability. I don't know about Senator for Bungoma, Dr. Kitui. I think he's going to be shocked on March 4th when he realizes that a good number of Kenyans will have shifted from tribal thinking and start focusing on issues. Everywhere we go, the conversation is around what are the things that affect me as a Kenyan? What are the things that are dear to me as a Kenyan? And we're beginning to hear more and more of this conversation, particularly amongst the new voter who's below the age of 25 and constitute 35% of the voting population.
Can I ask, Ronnie, is this reflected equally across the urban and the rural vote, or is this something that is more prominent in the urban areas?
I will tell you, for example, today we were in Narok. And the people of Narok understand the fact that, for example, that they have the third highest literacy levels in all the counties, yet they have the fewest number of schools per capita. They understand these things, and they are actually bringing them out. Now, Peter Kenneth, and you know, just going back to the issue of believability, Peter Kenneth put on a scale with all the other presidential candidates would floor them any day, any time. Because he has the best performing constituency last 6 years in a row. He is assistant minister in the best performing ministry based on performance contracting for the last 3 years, 4 years actually, in a row. And therefore, if it comes to believability,
I will, assure the two senators here that Eagle Alliance provides that believability that Kenyans want. And to Dr. Mukisa, that Kenyans actually are beginning to troop towards things that will improve their lives.
Why does it show the statistics of opinion polls?
But you have just said that these statistics, you don't believe them.
And I'm going to jump in here.
You don't
You
believe these
speak
statistics.
next, but I want to ask the viewers first. It would be very interesting to find out from you. Do you agree with Dr. Mukisa Kitui or with Ronnie Osumba? Are the voting patterns in Kenya changing? Are we starting to look at past record, issue-based voting, or are we locked into certain patterns connected to certain people? What are your thoughts? 2442 is the SMS number. We'd love to hear some of your views. Hassan, please come in here.
We have the political age, obviously, as the court coalition of always having people react to us. You see, when one critiques the entire manifestos or political standpoints are competing visions. You don't have to believe, but we believe we can achieve that. So to counter that, you give your own idea, you give your own vision. So rather than just do a critique of other people's manifestos and visions, come and provide yours. And I think ODM...
No, but we must question when you're
ODM, we're not misleading the country.
You're not ODM, you're Wiper.
ODM, I'm mentioning all the parties. ODM, Wiper, and Ford Kenya. We always say that, yeah, in terms of, to be more specific. ODM, Wiper, and Ford Kenya believes that these are things that are doable. And in fact, sometimes the challenges are the things that set the goals higher so that it gets the best out of you. We don't need easy, nebulous tasks so that you just go out there and do the obvious things and the easy things. So I believe these three parties have come with a common vision and a common purpose, and they have the capacity to do it.
Why do you forget the other smaller parties?
I mean, Hassan might care to remember that UDF was the first party to announce that it was going to guarantee free secondary school education in Kenya. We started giving out parts of our manifesto much earlier than the publication of theirs. Secondly, I don't think you have a right to defend what is indefensible. CORD is telling us they're going to create 1 million jobs per year. It's a lie. It's objectively impossible. And just because others haven't said that doesn't justify what you are saying, which is impossible.
You're saying the vision must be interrogated, and that is the responsibility also of the Kenyan people to sit down and take...
But he's not even read how that is going to be done. He comes with just this wild guess in his own mind.
I think he read the 1 million. I think he read the 1 million jobs.
It is in your document. But in terms, ODM has a framework. And I think ODM and Wiper,
the CORD Alliance,
has a framework. And because of that framework, I think the bottom line, I think people do not just give these kinds of objectives or these kinds of visions or statements because they look nice on paper. It's because they're achievable.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there because we want to get the Wananchi point of view. They're all standing by and they've heard your different thoughts. And Johnson Mukazi, in Nakuru, we'd love to know, what do people think about voting patterns and trends? We've been focusing for such a long time on voting for the people we feel most connected with. Is it now going to turn to issue-based voting, where you're looking at parties and candidates that are promising you what you need to hear, whether it's about employment or whether it's job creation or economic growth? Or what are the thoughts of the people with you, Johnson? Quickly, please.
Yeah, thank you so much indeed, Julie Gishuru, for that. Of course, here, people are also looking at that perspective. It's not so much about support to a particular candidate or a party. People are focusing on issues. And even as we continue on, a question here. Has anyone been approached by a pollster to take part in the process? Let me see by a show of hands. Okay, 1, 2, 3, okay. It's about 4 people, all right? Okay, so when you look at all those figures, does it really have any significance to you? Would you say issues are being focused on? Comments?
My name is Abdallah Bilai. I'm a thespian and a youth leader here in Nakuru. My comment and question is that the percentage does not represent the higher percentage, the exact percentage that represent the whole of Kenya.
Says the mic.
Beg your pardon for that. right?
The percentage does not represent the exact percentage that's supposed to represent, okay, the number of Kenya, because it does not capture the whole sectors, because people from different sectors have different views. So if they can increase the percentage as the aspirant said, it could be better, because, and one question is that me as a thespian, there's nobody or a aspirant who has given me his policy where he will, what he or she will do for the thespians and the youth who are out of schools. Like UDF has said that there'll be free education. But what about those who are out of school and they're trying to make it through?
Right, thank you so much for that comment. Something else that is coming up. When you look at the candidates, do you think they are in touch with the issues in Nakuru County?
My name is Benson Macharia. I'm a right activist in Nakuru. When we look at some majority of the candidates, actually the leading one, we can see majority of them are not in touch with the common mwananchi. That is why even after the primaries...
You agree with that? Okay.
That is why even after the primaries, we have seen a lot of mindset shift. People are now turning to other parties. People like the Eagle Alliance, they had no big support here in Nakuru, but they are gaining grounds. Because people are seeing now, I think we can now see the reality of the party politics. So I can say that the leaders ought to be in touch. And that's why when we look at the television, when we look at some of the leaders, like Peter Kenneth, we see them going without that euphoric thing that is being created by the media, by parties and all that. We think and we feel that we should have leaders who are working. Even right now, as we look at our candidates here, those who are here, they are only candidates who are committed to the well-being of the people of Nakuru. Others have shied away from this. They cannot be able to be here. But what we say that leaders ought to be in touch with the people, and they come and talk to people.
Right, thank you so much for that. Amazing. And of course, you will respond to that. But here, you said you've taken part in one of them. What would you say in terms of its significance? Is it really important? And for the rest, would you be ready to divulge such information that I support this party, I support this person? Perhaps you could respond to that significance bit. It's all right.
Well, thank you. I'm Abdul Fattah, the director, Market Group Kenya, and a servant of the youth. By me participating, I was just doing it because my friend approached me, and they wanted to, like, after that day, those people that were doing it, that at least you go and interview around 7 people. Now, since I know we don't have jobs, and you have been given that kind of job, and at the end of the day, you want to have like 7 people being interviewed. So I just did that, and to ensure that at the end of the day, amepata chakula kula.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So there's a bit of you've been influenced to take part in it. But would you say there is a significance to it? Perhaps a message to political parties to sort out their issues in terms of campaigns. Does it have any significance at all? Perhaps you could have a comment from this gentleman, and then we'll move on to the candidates before we move back again.
Thank you very much. My name is Aruguro Nyango, a lecturer at African Institute of Research and Development Studies, Nakuru campus. Personally, I want to believe that opinion polls, they are right in the mind of every Kenyan, because information is key to any moving country that want to move forward. First and foremost, that is something that we must admit. My major worry is that the people probably we are seeing up there as leading in those opinion polls, you may conclude that in real sense, I'm sorry to use this word, that they are not in touch with the people. Because you see these people, majority of the leaders from across the political divide, what they talk about is not the issues that us common wananchis we will want to hear. We want to hear how people are going to deal with the insecurity of Nakuru County. Nakuru County is the major population of Nakuru County is majorly composed of the youths, and you can see, they're the majority here. But nobody is talking about expanding Nakuru itself, right? And of course, touching on matters of national security, insecurity is there. Nobody is talking about such issues. That is my major worry. We are really going for people, I think, opinion polls, of course, they may be right, And Kenyans are being influenced on that particular way, which I want to believe that is so wrong. And to the opinion polls, I think we need to be more detailed. Include things like how many Onyangos were interviewed. How many, I think it will add, it is very important.
Thank you so much.
How many youths were interviewed?
Right.
And all that.
Thank you so much for that. Perhaps Waweru Mburu, what are the candidates saying?
Before you go to the candidates, I think the emerging issues here, Mwakazi, is about issues in our campaigns. And looking at the panelists in the studio, with all due respect to Dr. Muiza Kitui and the others, what Kenyans are saying, it's not a matter of who came up with this idea first. In fact, the promises that they're offering us were offered in 2007. In fact, they have been there since 2002. Now, we want to move on to how are you going to implement that free primary or secondary education? Where are you going to get this money from? If you want to tell us that, just like the president challenged and said, we have done Thika Superhighway, we have done Syokimau, let us not celebrate small things. What we need to ask ourselves is, which other road are we going to make? I think now what they should be telling us, these coalitions or parties, is that if you elect us, we are going to make a superhighway from Gigiri to the airport. Or we are going to make a superhighway from Nairobi to Nakuru or any other place. I think that's what Kenyans are asking for. And when I listen to this audience here, and I'm happy even the panelists in the studio are appreciating, and most of them are candidates. And we have candidates here. When you go out there and you're doing your campaign, do you see the crowds and you get excited? And from the blues, you tell them, I am going to make sure that you have also free primary education, forgetting that you'll not be doing it as a senator. It will be done at the top level. How do you sit down and decide that this is exactly measurable things that I can do for my people, and you promise them? Starting with you, Sami Nairoshi.
Thank you so much, Bwana Waweru. The most important thing that I wanted, first of all, to talk about is the way forward as far as the polling is concerned. We have seen from the polling data here that we are being pulled. One coalition is pulling so much to the right, the other coalition is pulling so much to the left. Now, we need a voice of reason. We need a voice of reason that comes up and talks about the issues. And this is what we are talking about, especially in the Amani Coalition. We are saying it's about the issues that affect the people. It is about putting food on the table.
Do you think that because of those issues, that's why you are being rated the way you are being rated? Because of issues?
No, I would say that the reason the rating is like that, it's because I would call that an elitist kind of polling. If you just pick up a poll, a database from M-Pesa, money changers, and then you say, you go through the list, because if you change money with M-Pesa oftenly, when you go to the database, you come out fast. So these are people with money. So probably this is an elitist kind of data polling.
Ben Gadogo, with UDF, you are vying for senatorial seat in Nakuru County. What do you have to say about these opinion polls?
First of all, I want to say that lack of critical judgment is not freedom from prejudice. The first question to ask is, who pays these pollsters? Because as the English say, whoever pays the piper calls the tune. So the first question to ask is, who pays these people to do this? If it's a political party, of course, they must say that political party is ahead. I'm very happy about the gentleman who said that, God is ahead and all that. It could be his feeling, and he's entitled to that. But if you look at the figures of the past general election, God had the whole of Western. They don't have it now. God had the whole of some part of Nyanza. They don't have it now. How could they be, ahead? Because the problem is, the moment you give people hope that you are going to win and you must win, the moment they don't win, that withdrawal syndrome is going to drive this country,
let us make it clear. Let us make it clear. It is not code we are doing it.
I'm not saying it's God.
Have said code is
I'm not saying it's God that is doing.
Yeah.
I'm saying whoever is doing, the first thing the pollsters ought to tell us is so and so commissioned us to conduct this poll. The second question that they ought to tell us is that, as my friend said, these are the people we poll. And as Mukisa Kitui, I agree with Mukisa Kitui almost entirely, he would say the demography, the people we are sampling, the jobless, these are the number of jobless people in Kenya, and we've sampled so many. These are the number of women in Kenya, we sampled so many. These are the number of youth in Kenya, we sampled so many. But the moment it's not like that. Anything. Suppose you wanted Peter Kenneth to win. Probably all what you need to do is to go and do that polling in Gatanga, and you'd emerge the top. So I want to say in a nutshell is that as we are moving to issues, because there are only two ways in Kenya, either ethnicity, which is almost the single most currency of political mobilization, or to issues. At UDF, why you're asking about that 5%, we've chosen issues. My friend here asked, after offering free secondary education, what next? We are saying we are also offering 500 polytechnics.
Thank you for that. We are talking about opinion polls. I do agree with you, and I'm very happy that the panelists in the studio are all talking about issues. And we want to drive this campaign, I think, in Kenyans' minds, on issues, rather than looking at the tribal numbers or looking at your gender and other issues. But very quickly, Stanley Karanja, with your final word, what do you think, as we leave this hall, we should take out there about opinion polls?
As Stanley Karanja and as Senator, very key role in the development of not only Nakuru County, but in the development of the entire country. We should always, whenever we get a situation like opinion polls, how can we improve it? Which are the issues do we need to address? For the role of the senator, we need to understand, because one of the role of the senator will be about the corruption that will happen with the money that the senator will have brought to the governor, and also the accountability and sourcing of funds. So if there are even those things that corruption index, the prevalence, can come to the opinion polls, how they're going to be conducted, that's what shall take this country forward. The issues about unemployment, let's get pollsters discussing about the real issues that affect people. Plus also, what are the solutions from the youth? Because when we are going there out in the marketplace, the political landscape, we're having diverse views, and we need to sample them to be able to get the way forward. Plus food security, what are the issues? Wawerumboro, let me say this to the whole country. This country, we have a problem of food security. Right now in Nakuru, where we believe we are supposed to be farming right now, all the shambas have been cut into pieces through the inheritance system. So where are we going? Those are the issues the pollsters should be addressing. So that
and also when you are elected, you must do something about it. Mr.
Thank you. We're going to do about it as Senator for Nakuru County. Thank you so much.
Assuming a poll has been done, and it shows that you are trailing your opponents, how would you take it?
I don't take it like that is the situation that is on the ground, because ideally what has happened in this country, Bwanamburu, is that the political elite in this country have refused to guide Kenyans towards the right marks of democratization and governance. Why are we in the 21st century talking about which ethnic group is popular than which? You see, this is not what is supposed to happen. It's just like putting the cart before the horse. What's supposed to be done in this country now is we pity the situation where leaders who are who are saying that they want to take this nation to the next level are leading the Kenyans in the wrong direction in terms of what is supposed to be polled and not. And the pollsters themselves, it is unfortunate. They are also, rallying to the whims of these guys who are saying that instead of looking at issues that affect Kenyans, we look at tribal mathematics and see which tribes stand higher than which one. For me, I would advise that it is the time that the Kenyan political elite, leaders at the national level, county level, even local level, decide on putting the issues before Kenyans so that we can now start looking at the real issues that we want to take to the next level.
I think, Mwakazi, we need to be agreed here that these are just trends and may change today or tomorrow, depending on many factors. So the issue of I've been leading and therefore I must win, you know, I don't think should arise. Exactly. Because today you may be leading, but tomorrow UDF may do something else that may change the figures. Mm-hmm. So I think even as Kenyans, we need to know that doesn't mean because you have been leading. If you are leading in a race, you cannot say that I must win this one, because up to the 12th lap, I'm the person who has been leading. Therefore, I must win it. Somebody can come and overtake you, depending on the energy that person has reserved. And therefore, we shouldn't always say that because this one has been leading, must be the winner, and therefore we are fighting because of that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because these polls will be done until the last minute. And therefore, even the last day can change things, depending on what a candidate has done, depending on what a coalition has done. But for heaven's sake, as I come back to you, our audience, let us make sure that we maintain peace.
Peace,
we
absolutely.
Repeat what we have seen in the studio. I love it. These are our leaders. If they can get together, be able to chat, and then go home happy, tomorrow they will meet in the Senate or in Parliament or in other forums, and they are able to live together as brothers and sisters. Why can't we do it the same, the people of Nakuru? That's my challenge to you as I come to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much indeed. It's very clear indeed that peace is a non-negotiable imperative. We cannot debate with it. Perhaps before we leave, just final remarks in terms of the way forward. We want to rise up as one indivisible community called Kenya. Final remarks, a quick one.
Hi, my name is Sharon Adhiambo, and I'm an artist, dancer by profession. And what I would like to tell Kenyans, let's not follow the majority, follow your heart. Don't say that I'm not going to vote for this person because I'm going to waste my vote. No, that's a very bad thing. Thank you.
Round of applause. Another one who hasn't said something. Quick one.
My name's John Paul. I work for an NGO here in town, and I'm also a student in St. Paul's University. Now, I've been hearing all the, our candidates seated there, but I never heard any of them talking about how you'll take advantage of the new constitution in order to see that the people live in harmony and we have equitable distribution of resources. Not until, mark my words, not until Kenya has equitable distribution of resources, we will always be voting based on our tribal background. Why do we vote for people? Why do I vote for maybe, let's say, Raila or maybe Kibaki? Because I know I love Thika Highway, I love maybe Ahero Super Highway. You know, it will take me less time to go there, you see? Not until we have equitable distribution of resources. People will always be voting on tribal.
Thank you so much. These are final remarks onto which way we're taking, way forward. Brief, kindly keep it brief.
Jina yangu ni Simon Etwinyi, nafanya na George African Institute, na nina maoni juu ya opinion poll kwamba si ya haki, kwa sababu wakati mwingi inafanya Wakenya wasipate kufanya haki yao.
Could I have this?
Okay. Na nasema hivi, katika hiyo maono ya ambao wanatutolea kila wakati, inasema si ya haki kwa sababu inatufanya sisi Wakenya wengi tusifanye haki yetu na tusiweze kufanya haki. Kwa hiyo wangefanya tu, wangetoa maono haya kuhusu mambo mengine kama umaskini na utajiri, lakini siasa watuajie ili tuweze kutenda haki. Shukrani.
A very quick one. Way forward, and we're looking at positivity here.
Thank you very much. My name is Nyambane Meshak. I'm an educationist from Nakuru. My issue is very simple. You know, opinion polls have suddenly become a campaign issue. And immediately after the nominations that have just been chaotic, people have just disappeared. They have gone to the bushes and now they are speaking about discussing opinion polls. I want to say very clearly that the Mheshimiwas in the studio, kindly come back to the ground, keep the pace. Not the moment you win a ticket that is so popular in that particular region, you disappear, now you assume that everything is done, then you sit down and wait for us to discuss on your behalf on issues pertaining your constituency. I want to say, come back to the ground, face us, talk to us, and never assume. And it's a challenge to the most popular parties in this particular county and others.
Thank you so much indeed. A challenge there to leaders. Perhaps a final one, and this time we're talking about gender equality here. So let me have a comment there from a lady. Thank you so much.
My name is Armasi Nyambura, student intern with the Kenya News Agencies. For me, I'll just like to say this. The polls are there, and that's just a figure. But in as much as you consider it as a figure, what quantity does it carry to you? According to what Mr. Karanja said, we as Kenyans, yes, we need a president, but is this president a good leader or a bad leader? Definitely, we need a good leader. But what are the steps? What are the steps that we take as Kenyans to get that good leader? At the end of it all, we will go there, and finally, we will come up with a leader, but not a good leader, because we are not looking at what exactly we want. We are looking at what me and my friend wants, not what I personally want. So stand for what you want so that you can get that good leader, because they are very good in preaching good things. But when they go to parliament, they are the first people that we see sleeping in parliament. Parliament is not a bedroom. Let's talk of change.
Thank you so much indeed. You have it there. But before we wind up, perhaps a final comment from our very own Waweru Mburu.
I think I must say Mwakazi is very lovely, that apart from discussing about opinion polls, we are also now starting to look at issues. And that's where I would ask our leaders to drive this campaign to, for the good of this country. And I think listening to views from the audience here is that nobody wants this country to go the way where we were in 2008. And indeed, like we are seated here from all communities and sharing, and there are no hard feelings. I think we should encourage this more. And when you go out there, our audience, we may not be as many, but be good ambassadors. If you can spread that to 5 people, and those 5 people spread to other 5 people, that multiplication effect will help us to change this country for our own good, not for the good of our leaders. In any case, they are also Kenyans. They need that peace.
Yeah. Thank you so much. A round of applause. Thank you so much. Indeed, we can decide to take the politics of ethnicity or issues. Which one are we ready to take? Issue-based. We can decide to talk politics or leadership. What do we want to talk about? Leadership. It's all about leadership. And today we stand together and we're saying, hey, after the elections, we have a country that we have to uphold. One another as one indivisible community called what? Kenya. And that's the message. So thank you so much indeed. Thank you so much for the panel. Our candidates, we totally appreciate you big time. Thank you so much for your participation. A round of applause, please, for that. And of course, thank you so much indeed for the management, Montana Hotel. We totally appreciate your hospitality. Thank you so much for the cameramen. Thank you so much for our directors, our producers, everyone who made this production a great deal indeed. Thank you so much. My name is Johnson Mwakazi, and the people of Nakuru County, what is your message? Peace. What is your message? Peace. Thank you so much indeed.
Well, thank you very much for that, Mwakazi. Very positive message there in spite of the different points of view. Gentlemen, you've been so patient. It's been great having you here with us for the duration of this show. And to finish off, give us your thoughts and projections on how this election will go. and you've done your own research, you have your own information on the ground, and I'm going to start right here with you, Murkomen, and go down.
Basically, my message to the rest of the Kenya population.
Projections first, then you'll give us a message.
Basically, we as a party, and that's what as a coalition, and I want to tell our supporters that the figures are not as different as actually being seen in the opinion polls. We need to keep on knocking more doors and calling more people, campaigning for the coalition, because we have good programs for you. And we believe that we are closer to 50%, so we need to work harder, and hopefully we'll win with 51 or 52%.
Kabando said 55, you say 50, 51, 52. Okay, let's come to Ronnie. Hold on, in a moment. Okay.
Julie, I think the race is going to be closer than it is. I think there's nobody who's going to win first round. This race is definitely going to second round. So despite and in spite of what the senator here tells us, or Mheshimiwa Kabando tells us, I think we're going to second round. And Eagle Alliance is going to be playing a critical role in the second round.
Well, let's come to you,
Our projections, I've said ODM for so long, but it's caught, is that we will win first round. We are very positive. I think we have the infrastructure, we have the campaign momentum, we have the goodwill, we have the trust, we have the credibility, we have the integrity, we have all the ingredients and the agenda for the Kenyan people. And with the kinds of attacks in terms of by air, by land, by sea, in terms of our campaign after the presidential launch on Wednesday, I do believe we will bag it round one. We're not underestimating the level of competition. It is definitely going to be a tight race. We are looking at a two-horse race. Definitely Kipchumba Murkomen, my great friend. I do pray that he gets to the Senate. But nonetheless, we are going to fight it and battle it out tough.
Let's go to Dr. Kitui.
Well, from what has been discussed, the past 2 hours, first of all, there's a great future in opinion polling, but we're not yet there. We're not yet out of the woods. But having said that, I think I share the views of two colleagues here. There's nobody who's winning on the first round. This is going to the second round. As to whether Eagle will play a significant role in that's now becoming a bit more debatable.
Not just play.
It's a very humble approach.
I'm a humble man.
If we had second round, we will win it.
Yes, but fundamentally, I like the spirit of this dialogue and I like Waweru Mburu. He has seen the light since last week. He's such a reformed and more interesting and encouraging man. But I think the Kenyan population should emulate this. This represents 4 different political forces. We are disagreeing on issues, but we get up out of here, we shake hands, we even share a car out of here. Right. I wish our supporters could do the same.
Right. So you've heard, we wish the supporters will do the same. Do not be misled by politicians. And if any politician is trying to make you get involved in any kind of negativity and violence, that is not a leader for this nation. Final comments, and you can look into the camera to make your comments. Just to be sure, it is that camera there. And I'll start with you, Dr. Kitui.
Thank you very much. My appeal to the citizens of this country, we are going through a very critical election. We have to reclaim leadership in this region. For us to do that, first of all, we must show a credible exercise in choosing our leaders. We must put our best manners forward. We must demonstrate political maturity by voting peacefully, by campaigning respectfully, and by voting on the basis of what represents the best interests of our country in the future. And may I also take the occasion to ask the voters of Bungoma County to support me in my bid to become their first senator.
Hassan Omar, please.
For me, as much as my message will be general, it is specific to the young people. Kipchumba, my brother Ron, and myself are within our 30s, and we have tried to make something of ourselves because we deserve better. We want to be senator because we deserve better as young people. We should not just be these persons who are incited to stone throwing and carrying the old brand of political class. We must carry ideas. We must carry with us hope. And therefore, my appeal to the young people of this country is to participate in this process wisely in a manner that is beneficial to themselves as individuals and to the society in general. But generally, I think we must skip the barriers of ethnicity. We must now vote objectively. I know it's still, we have quite quite far from there, but it's still not impossible. So therefore, I think determine the political agendas of the respective political forces and make a determination who represents the future of this country. Because for you now, 50 years on, as we celebrate our next 50, or going into the next 50 years, this country must truly be free now and witness the independence that we need. And just like Muhisa, I'm urging the Mombasa voters to put their faith in me as their first senator. I shall not disappoint.
Okay, Ronnie.
Thank you, Julie. It has been, I think, a very enlightening show. And my final comments to the people of Kenya would be, this election is about us. It's not about politics. It's about leadership. It's about the issues that affect us. It's about making the next 5 years count. And on March 4th, we have the responsibility as Kenyans to stand up and do what is right for this country. It is very easy to follow the convenient path, but it is time to actually do that which is right. And if we as a people choose what is right, then we will have liberated ourselves from a history of bondage, from many years of bondage. Other than that, like my fellow colleagues here, I will appeal to the people of Kenya to make history by voting Peter Kenneth for president, and in effect voting me as the youngest vice president this country
Deputy
has.
President.
Yes, well, deputy president. And in Africa, actually. And to remember that we actually have a country after March 4th. It is extremely important, Julie, that even as these opinion polls continue to push us into our cocoons, that we must remember that when we wake up on March 5th, like Daktari said, we must all show decorum as Kenyans. We are one people, we are one tribe called Kenya, and we must live in peace.
Thank you so much. More comment, please.
Thank you, Julie. First of all, I am in a very celebratory mood because my county was ranked the second best in the country.
Congratulations. That's great.
And therefore, I would like to urge all Kenyans to take that spirit of competition, that we will compete, but ultimately we will hug each other after the competition and appreciate each other for the work we've done and have our country we are moving forward. I think my call and my request is that we take this competition as just like any other competition in athletics, in football and other games, and ensure that after the nomination process, after the election process, we should be able to shake hands together, appreciate each other, knowing that peace is very important, particularly for me who comes from Rift Valley. I want to request to all the people who live in so-called hotspots in the last elections that this time round we shall never go back there. We are going to have peaceful elections. We'll elect whoever we elect. If Kipchumba loses to his competitors, he will shake their hands and move on, and all of us. And I want to request my friends who are in the different alliances that we tone down the inflammatory statements, which we have been coming out of late as a show of some panic. But we just tell it that we just want to campaign and compete peacefully. Finally, like my friends have done, I'd like to request the people of Elgeyo Marakwet County to give me their support as I also move forward. My slogan actually is Twasonga Mbele, we are moving forward. And I think as I present my papers on Thursday and start the last phase of this campaign, I request for your prayers and support. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this time, gentlemen. And just to wind up, your thoughts have been coming in there, many. What we are going to do is start the show next week with the thoughts that came in on whether Kenya is changing its voting patterns or whether we are locked into the patterns of tribal voting. I think what is clear is something is happening. There is a shift right here in studio. Each of these gentlemen supporting the other's bid for the senatorship and the deputy president. In fact, they've been calling each other senator and deputy president during the breaks, and you know, there's a spirit, there's a positive spirit, I think, that is reflected both in Nakuru and right here, and let's try and keep that going right across the country. If you are not being positive, if you are negative, if you are spreading hate, divisiveness, then you are the problem that Kenya has. Are you the solution or the problem? You've got to decide. I'm Julie Gishuru. It's been such a pleasure. God bless you. Have a wonderful week ahead. Good night. Thank you so much.